Looking back now, it's easy to see all the places I went wrong, all the little details I brushed off as nothing. But when you're out there in the quiet with nothing but your own thoughts for company, things feel different, more immediate. I was 28 then, just old enough to think I knew everything, but young enough to still crave the kind of solitude that most people actively avoid. My camera was my constant companion, a passport to forgotten places, and my excuse for disappearing off the grid for days at a time. I specialized in what they called urban exploration, though most of my spots were far from any city, crumbling farmhouses, abandoned mines, forgotten settlements swallowed by the encroaching wilderness. I prided myself on my planning, my gear, my ability to navigate tricky terrain alone. But even the best plans have weak points, and mine usually involved underestimating the profound silence of true isolation. This particular trip was to a place locals whispered about, a ghost town really, deep in the Appalachian foothills. It wasn't on any map I owned, at least not the modern ones. I'd pieced together its location from old geological surveys and vague directions from a grizzled old-timer at a dusty general store 100 miles east. He just grunted, "Ain't nothing out there but trees and ghosts now, boy." "Keep your sense about you." I chuckled it off, assuming he was talking about long-dead miners. I packed light as always, just enough food for 3 days, my camera bag, a first aid kit, and a decent multi-tool. No phone signal, of course, that was half the point. I craved the disconnect. The hike in was brutal, steeper, and more overgrown than I'd anticipated. It took me a full day just to reach the faint, moss-covered remains of an old wagon trail. By the time I found the first collapsed cabin, the sun was already dipping below the ridge, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. It was beautiful, undeniably so, but the light was fading fast. I knew I'd messed up by starting too late. My original plan was to reach the main cluster of buildings with an hour of daylight to spare, enough time to scout a good camping spot. Now I was racing against the encroaching darkness. That was my first mistake, a small one, but it set the stage. I was tired, my guard just a little bit down. I pushed through the dense undergrowth, the air growing colder, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying wood. Suddenly the trees thinned, revealing a clearing, and there it was, not a collection of shacks, but what looked like the skeleton of a stone building, perhaps an old church or a community hall. Most of it had crumbled into rubble, swallowed by ivy and thick brambles. But one section of wall still stood defiantly, a jagged tooth against the darkening sky. And in that wall, perfectly preserved, was a single arched window opening. No glass, no frame, just an empty space where light or darkness could pass through. It called to me, literally, from across the clearing. The last rays of sunlight struck it directly, making the empty arch glow with a strange, almost inviting luminescence. It was a perfect photographic subject, an emblem of ruin and resilience. I raised my camera, trying to capture the eerie beauty, but something held me back. As I looked through the viewfinder, aligning the shot, a prickle ran up my spine. It wasn't the cold or the growing shadows. It was the distinct, unsettling sensation that I wasn't just looking at the window. The window, somehow, was looking back at me. And not just looking. It felt like it was watching with an almost intelligent awareness from the very core of that forgotten place. The hairs on my neck stood on end. My breath hitched. It was a weird, utterly baseless feeling, a phantom sensation, but it was strong enough to make me lower my camera and spin around, scanning the silent woods behind me. Nothing, just trees, deep, dark, silent trees. I told myself it was fatigue, the isolated environment playing tricks on my mind. But the feeling lingered. A cold, sharp point of awareness pressing against my back, as if whatever was watching had simply shifted its gaze to my exposed spine. The woods remained silent, impossibly so. No rustle of leaves, no chirp of a cricket, no hoot of an owl. It was as if the forest itself held its breath, mirroring my own sudden involuntary stillness. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum against the encroaching dark. I swallowed, a dry, rasping sound in my own ears. This was ridiculous. I was an experienced explorer, not some jumpy kid spooked by shadows. It was the isolation, I told myself again, the deep, primeval quiet that played tricks on the mind. Yet the feeling of an unseen gaze persisted, a cold weight on my shoulders that no amount of rationalization could dislodge. I slowly turned back to face the arch. The last vestiges of sunset had faded, leaving the sky a deep, bruised purple. The window opening, once glowing, was now a gaping maw of absolute black. It seemed to pulse with an absence of light, a void that swallowed the faint, remaining twilight. My camera, still clutched in my hand, felt suddenly heavy, useless. What good was a lens against something that watched from the very air? I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to regain my composure. "Right," I muttered aloud, the sound thin and reedy in the vast silence. "Camp, need to set up camp." My voice sounded alien, an unwelcome intrusion into the profound quiet. I forced myself to move, to turn my back on the unsettling arch and scout for a spot. My eyes darted around the clearing, searching for a relatively flat patch sheltered from the wind. Every shadow seemed to stretch, to morph into something vaguely menacing. Every snapped twig under my boot made me flinch, expecting to find something lurking just beyond my peripheral vision. I settled on a spot near a cluster of thick, gnarled oak trees, perhaps 30 yards from the ruined stone building. It offered some concealment and a relatively even ground. My movements were stiff, my muscles still tensed from the irrational fear. I dropped my pack with a dull thud that echoed disproportionately loud. The air was growing steadily colder, the kind of biting chill that signals a long, dark night. My fingers felt clumsy as I unzipped my pack, pulling out my small tent, sleeping bag, and headlamp. As I began to unfurl the tent, I couldn't shake the sensation of being observed. I kept glancing up, my gaze drawn irresistibly back to the black arch. It was a magnet for my attention, a dark pupil in the face of the crumbling ruin. I found myself setting up the tent so that its entrance faced away from the building, a small, futile attempt at shielding myself from its unseen gaze. Even as I did it, I felt foolish. What good would a thin nylon barrier be against something that seemed to exist purely in the realm of sensation? The darkness deepened rapidly now. The moon, a sliver of silver, was beginning to climb above the eastern ridge, casting long, distorted shadows across the clearing. The air filled with the damp, earthy smell of the forest floor, mingled with the faint, sweet scent of decay. I clicked on my headlamp, its beam a stark, artificial circle in the overwhelming gloom. The light cut through the shadows, but it also seemed to make them more profound, giving substance to the amorphous shapes that lurked just beyond its reach. I inflated my sleeping pad, unrolled my bag, and then for a moment simply sat on the ground, hunched over, trying to catch my breath. The silence was absolute, a heavy blanket pressing down on me. I listened, really listened, for any sound, an animal, the rustle of leaves, anything that would break the suffocating stillness. There was nothing, just the frantic beat of my own heart in my ears. My stomach rumbled, a stark reminder of my neglected hunger. I pulled out a pouch of dehydrated food in a small pot. I needed to boil water. The mundane act of preparing a meal felt strangely grounding, a tether to the normal world. I fumbled for my small, portable stove, setting it up carefully on a flat rock. As I pumped the fuel, my headlamp beam swept across the ground, illuminating patches of moss, fallen leaves, and the occasional pale, ghostly mushroom. My gaze drifted again, inevitably, to the ruined building. The arch was still there, a darker hole in the already profound darkness. I raised my headlamp, focusing its beam directly on it. The light seemed to be swallowed, absorbed without reflection. It was like shining a flashlight into a bottomless well. No, not a well, something else, something that drank light. A shiver ran down my spine, more potent than the cold. I snatched my hand back, lowering the beam. This was getting ridiculous. My mind was playing tricks, my fatigue and the isolation conspiring against me. I needed food, warmth, and sleep. I forced myself to focus on the task at hand. The stove hissed to life, a comforting mechanical sound that broke the oppressive silence, and I placed the pot of water on it. While the water heated, I tried to distract myself, pulling out my camera. Maybe if I looked at the photos I'd already taken, the familiar ritual would calm me. I scrolled through the images from the hike in, the vibrant greens of the forest, the faint outlines of the old wagon trail. Then I came to the shots of the clearing, taken just as the sun was setting. I found the one I'd been attempting to compose when the unsettling feeling first struck. I zoomed in on the arch. It looked normal, a weathered stone opening, beautiful in a stark, ruined way. I scrutinized it, searching for any anomaly, any trick of light or shadow that might have triggered my reaction. Nothing, it was just a window. A very old, very empty window. But then, as I held the image on the small screen, something shifted. Not in the photograph itself, but in my perception. The blackness within the arch seemed to deepen, to draw my gaze inward. I felt a faint, almost imperceptible pull, like a whisper at the edge of hearing. It was the same feeling as before, that sense of being watched, but now it was emanating from the image. My breath hitched, my fingers trembled, and the camera almost slipped from my grasp. I hastily powered it off, plunging the screen into darkness. The feeling receded slightly, but didn't vanish entirely. It was like shutting a door on a sound, only to realize the sound was now inside the room with you. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, this is impossible." I stuffed the camera back into its padded bag, my hands fumbling. My rational mind screamed for an explanation. A reflection, a strange light anomaly, but the feeling was too personal, too pointed to be dismissed as a trick of the lens. It was a cold, knowing awareness that settled deep in my bones. The water began to boil, steam hissing into the cold air. I poured it into the dehydrated food pouch, stirring it mechanically. The aroma of synthetic chicken and rice filled the air, a familiar, reassuring smell. I ate slowly, forcing myself to chew, to taste, to focus on the simple act of sustenance. But my eyes kept darting towards the ruin, drawn by an invisible thread. The moon had risen higher now, a pale orb that cast the clearing in a spectral, silvery light. The ruined building stood silhouetted against the dark sky, its jagged walls like broken teeth. And the arch, a blacker void within the silhouette, seemed to stare directly at me, a silent, unblinking eye. I finished my meal quickly, packing away the stove and securing my food in a bare bag, hoisting it high into one of the oak trees. It was a routine I'd done countless times, but tonight every movement felt like an exposed gesture. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of a branch made me jump. Finally, I retreated into my tent, zipping the fly shut with a sense of desperate relief. The thin nylon walls felt like a fortress, though I knew they offered no real protection against anything truly menacing. I lay in my sleeping bag, headlamp off, plunged into absolute darkness. The quiet outside was overwhelming, a presence in itself. I tried to close my eyes to force sleep, but my mind was racing, replaying the events of the last hour. The unsettling sensation, the silent woods, the dark arch that seemed to drink the light. I told myself it was just my imagination, a consequence of my solitary nature and the eerie surroundings. Yet the feeling of being watched was stronger than ever now, pressing against the tent walls, seeping through the fabric, settling around me like a shroud. I lay there for what felt like hours, rigid with tension, every nerve ending screaming. My ears strained, listening for anything, any sound that would confirm or deny my growing dread. The only sound was the frantic thrumming of my own pulse. Then, just as I was beginning to drift into a fitful sleep, I heard it. A sound. It was faint, almost imperceptible at first, a whisper carried on the cold night air. A low, drawn-out moan, not human, not animal, something else, something I couldn't categorize. It seemed to emanate from the direction of the ruined building, a sound of profound sorrow or immense effort, stretched thin and long. My eyes snapped open. Adrenaline surged through me, banishing all thoughts of sleep. I held my breath, listening, my body coiled tight. Was it the wind? An owl? No, the air was still, utterly still, and the sound was too distinct, too deliberate. It came again, a little louder this time, a mournful, echoing keen that seemed to vibrate in the very air around me. It was mournful, yes, but there was something else in it, too. A chilling undercurrent of something predatory, something ancient and hungry. I scrambled for my headlamp, clicking it on. The beam, a stark white disk, illuminated the inside of my tent, revealing the condensation on the nylon, the folds of my sleeping bag. It offered no comfort, no explanation. I unzipped the tent fly just enough to peer out, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The clearing was bathed in moonlight, stark and eerie. The ruined building loomed, a black mass against the pale sky. The arch was a deeper black, an eye staring back. The sound came a third time, stronger now, a drawn-out, resonant groan that seemed to rise from the very earth itself. It was definitely coming from the ruin. It was slow, agonizing, like something impossibly heavy shifting, or something impossibly old stirring from a long slumber. My breath hitched in my throat. This wasn't fatigue. This wasn't imagination. This was real. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to pack up, to flee, to put as much distance as possible between myself and that sound, that building, that knowing darkness. But my feet felt rooted to the ground. A perverse curiosity, a dangerous, thrilling desire to understand, warred with the primal urge to escape. I was an explorer, I reminded myself. I sought the unknown. Well, here it was. I closed the tent fly again, not out of any sense of security, but because I suddenly felt utterly exposed. I pulled my multi-tool from its sheath, the cool metal a small, comforting weight in my trembling hand. It was a pathetic defense, I knew, but it was something. I waited, listening. The moaning didn't come again. The silence returned, heavy and absolute, but now it was imbued with a new, terrifying meaning. It was not the silence of peace, but the silence of waiting, of watching. Sleep was impossible. I spent the rest of the night huddled in my sleeping bag, eyes wide open, staring at the dimly lit nylon ceiling, every nerve on edge. Each rustle of leaves, each imagined creak sent jolts of fear through me. The cold seeped into my bones, but it was the cold of dread, not just the temperature. When the first faint gray of dawn finally appeared, painting the eastern sky, I felt a wave of profound relief, quickly followed by a crushing exhaustion. My muscles ached, my head throbbed. I hadn't slept a wink. But with the light came a resurgence of my rational mind, pushing back against the night's terrors. The sun always brought a measure of sanity. The spectral moans, the intelligent gaze, they seemed less real, less menacing in the growing daylight. My mind tried to dismiss them as a dream, a byproduct of my fatigue and the spooky atmosphere. but the memory was too vivid, too ingrained. The fear was still a knot in my stomach. I unzipped my tent, pushing aside the fly. The clearing was bathed in the soft, ethereal glow of early morning. Mist hung low amongst the trees, swirling like ghostly tendrils. The air was crisp and cold, smelling of pine and damp earth. I looked at the ruined building. It stood there, mundane and broken, its stone walls covered in ivy, a relic of a forgotten past. The arch was just an empty opening, sunlight now streaming through it, illuminating a patch of weeds and rubble within. It looked harmless, almost peaceful. The sense of being watched was gone, replaced by the mundane reality of a chilly morning. I packed up my camp quickly, my movements stiff and automatic. My plan for the day had been to explore the main cluster of buildings, to photograph them, to document this forgotten place. And despite the terror of the night, a flicker of that explorer's curiosity remained. I needed answers. I needed to understand what I'd heard, what I'd felt. Or perhaps I just needed to prove to myself that it was all in my head. I slung my camera bag over my shoulder, grabbed my trekking poles, and started walking towards the ruin. Each step felt heavy, deliberate. My eyes scanned the ground, searching for any sign, any track, anything that might explain the night's events. There was nothing, just damp earth, fallen leaves, and moss-covered stones. As I approached the stone building, I noticed for the first time the intricate carvings on some of the remaining stones. They were worn by time, almost completely effaced, but I could make out faint patterns, spirals, interlocking lines, symbols I didn't recognize. They weren't typical for a church or community hall. They looked older, more primitive, like something from an ancient culture, not a 19th century Appalachian settlement. My apprehension grew with each step. This wasn't just a simple ghost town. There was something else here, something deep. I reached the base of the wall with the arch. The stone was cold and rough beneath my fingertips. I ran my hand over the weathered surface, tracing the faint lines of what looked like stylized animals intertwined with geometric patterns. They felt alien, out of place. I peered through the arch. The interior was choked with rubble, fallen timbers, and a dense tangle of brambles and ivy. The sunlight that streamed through the opening illuminated motes of dust dancing in the still air. It was just a ruin, open to the elements, home to spiders and mice. No monstrous being, no spectral entity. "See," I muttered to myself, trying to sound confident. "Just an old building, nothing here." But as my eyes adjusted to the dim light within, scanning the debris, something caught my attention. Tucked away in a small, relatively clear alcove formed by a collapsed section of wall was a faint, almost imperceptible discoloration on the moss-covered floor. It looked like a darker stain, a patch where the moss was thinner or perhaps stained by something. My curiosity, the driving force behind all my expeditions, overcame my lingering fear. I carefully stepped over the fallen stones, pushing aside the thorny brambles, making my way into the heart of the ruin. The air inside was colder, heavier, and carried a faint, metallic tang. I knelt down, brushing away the leaves and loose dirt. The stain was roughly circular, about a foot in diameter, and indeed the moss seemed to shy away from it, leaving a patch of bare, dark earth. It wasn't fresh, but it wasn't ancient either. It looked recent, as if something had been placed there or something had pooled. I touched it with my finger. The earth felt unusually cold, even colder than the surrounding ground, and it was damp despite the dryness of the rest of the ruin. I brought my finger to my nose, sniffing. There was a faint, almost imperceptible odor. Not decay, not blood, not anything I could immediately identify. It was earthy, yes, but with a strange, metallic undertone like rust and something else, something acrid and primal. My heart began to pound again, softly at first, then with increasing urgency. This wasn't natural. This wasn't just old timbers and dust. I pulled out my multi-tool, extending the small digging blade. I carefully scraped away a thin layer of the damp, dark earth. Beneath it, I found it. Not a bone, not an artifact. It was a symbol. Etched into the stone bedrock beneath the thin layer of earth was a shallow, perfectly formed carving. It was an intricate design, a swirling vortex with 3 distinct points radiating outward, terminating in barbed hooks. It was similar in style to the faint carvings on the exterior walls, but much clearer, much more deliberate. And the stain was right in the center of the vortex. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't random. This was intentional. This was a symbol, and it felt charged with some ancient, malevolent power. The moans from the night returned to my mind, clearer, louder. They hadn't been an owl. They hadn't been the wind. They had been this, whatever this was. I stared at the symbol, a cold dread washing over me. This wasn't urban exploration anymore. This was something else entirely. Something beyond my understanding, something ancient and dark that had been buried or perhaps was only just awakening. I reached for my camera, my hands shaking. I needed to document this. My rational mind, fighting against the primal fear, demanded evidence. I carefully framed the shot, focusing on the symbol, the strange, damp earth, the swirling design. As I pressed the shutter button, a low, guttural growl vibrated through the air, seemingly from right beside me. I froze, every muscle locking up. It wasn't the distant moan from the night. This was close, too close. The sound was deep, resonant, and filled with an undeniable menace. It felt like it had been held in check by the night, and only now in the light could it truly emerge. My blood ran cold. I dropped my camera, the dull thud echoing in the enclosed space. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, I turned my head, my eyes darting around the ruined interior. Nothing, just the fallen stones, the brambles, the dust motes dancing in the sunlight. The growl came again, a little louder, a little closer, this time accompanied by a faint, wet sniffing sound. It was coming from deeper within the ruin, from a section obscured by a particularly dense pile of rubble and a curtain of thick, dark ivy. My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird desperate for escape. I could feel the vibrations of the growl in my chest, a deep resonance that spoke of immense power. It was not human. It was not animal, not any animal I knew. It was something else, something utterly alien and terrifying. My mind screamed at me to run, to scramble back over the rubble and flee the clearing. But my body wouldn't obey. I was paralyzed by a fear so profound, so absolute, that it cemented me to the spot. My eyes, wide with terror, were fixed on the curtain of ivy, expecting some monstrous shape to emerge at any moment. The sniffing sound grew louder, closer. It was wet, heavy, like something large and incredibly powerful was breathing just behind the leafy curtain. A branch cracked, a low thud as something heavy shifted. And then a sound I would forever associate with utter, soul-shaking terror. A low, wet chuckle. It was deep, guttural, and undeniably intelligent. A laugh of pure malevolence echoing through the ruin. "You found it," a voice rumbled, low and rasping, from behind the ivy. It was not a human voice. It was too deep, too resonant, too wet. It sounded like gravel being scraped over damp stone, combined with the gurgle of a bogged-down beast. Didn't think you would, most don't. My blood froze in my veins. A voice, it had a voice, and it spoke English. A twisted, distorted mockery of English, but English nonetheless. I still couldn't see anything, but the sound was undeniably close. The air around me suddenly felt heavy, charged with an unseen presence. The metallic tang I'd noticed earlier was stronger now, mixed with a faint, cloying sweetness like stale blood and decaying flowers. Curious, aren't you? The voice continued, the wet chuckle coming again, closer still, like a little mouse sniffing around the traps. My mouth was dry, my tongue thick. I tried to speak, to scream, to do anything, but no sound would come out. My limbs felt like lead. A tendril of ivy, thick and dark, slowly parted, and behind it something shifted, not fully revealed, just a glimpse. A patch of dark, matted fur like a bear, but coarser, rougher. A glint of something pale and sharp like bone or fang, and then an eye. It was unlike any eye I had ever seen, large, luminous, and utterly alien. It was a swirling vortex of deep, dark amber and black, reflecting no light but seeming to emit a faint, sickly glow from within. It blinked slowly, deliberately, and in that single, unblinking gaze I felt an ancient, malevolent intelligence studying me, weighing me, dissecting me. It held no mercy, no pity, only a vast, terrifying hunger. "Come closer," the voice rumbled, a command more than an invitation. "Come see what you've awoken." My body, against all conscious will, began to move. A terrifying, involuntary step forward, drawn by an unseen, irresistible force. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, taking me deeper into the shadow, deeper towards the unseen horror. My mind screamed, but my body was no longer my own. I was being pulled slowly, inexorably, towards the source of the voice, towards the monstrous eye that held me captive. I was a puppet, and something ancient and terrible was pulling my strings. The symbol on the ground pulsed faintly, a dark heartbeat, as if in response to the awakening presence. I was trapped not by physical bonds, but by a power far older and more profound than any I could comprehend. I could only stare, wide-eyed and numb, as I was drawn deeper into the chilling heart of the ruin. My legs moved, heavy and unwilling, carrying me forward. Each step was a battle, a silent scream of defiance from my conscious mind against the invisible tether that pulled me. The air grew colder, thick with that metallic sweet scent that now felt cloying, oppressive. My eyes, wide and unblinking, were fixed on the slight tremor in the ivy, the unseen horror that lurked just beyond. The sound of the entity's wet chuckle echoed in my skull, a grotesque counterpoint to the frantic pounding of my heart. "Good," the rasping voice purred, closer now, a sound that scraped against my nerves. "Very good. Come closer, little explorer. The best discoveries are always made in the dark." My body continued its slow, horrifying shuffle. I tried to dig my heels in, to resist, to break free from the invisible grip. But it was like fighting against a river current, strong, relentless, and utterly unyielding. The symbol on the ground, the swirling vortex with its barbed points, seemed to pulse with a faint, dark light that only I could see, an internal throb that mirrored the beat of my own terror. It felt like the source of the pull, a dark magnet drawing me deeper into its orbit. As I drew nearer, the ivy parted further, not just a tendril now, but a whole curtain of the dense, dark leaves. And then I saw it, or rather, I saw more of it. It wasn't a bear or a wolf or any animal I had ever encountered in the wild or in a book. It was a monstrous composite, a nightmare made flesh. Its bulk was immense, easily filling the alcove, pressing against the collapsed stones. Its hide was a mottled, charcoal gray, leathery in places, matted with coarse, black fur in others, slick and glistening with some unknown fluid in others still. It had the powerful, hunched shoulders of a great ape, but its limbs were too long, too sinuous, ending in claws that looked like honed obsidian blades. Each claw was easily 6 inches long, curved and razor-sharp, resting idly on the mossy ground. Its head was low, angled, emerging from a thick, powerful neck. The eye I had glimpsed before was now fully visible, set deep within a craggy brow. It was indeed a swirling vortex of deep, dark amber and black, but it wasn't just one eye. There were two, perfectly symmetrical, each one a universe of malevolence. They glowed with an internal, sickly light like embers from a forgotten fire. And beneath them, where a snout or mouth might be, was a nightmare of twisted bone and glistening flesh. Its mouth was a wide, jagged rift, lined with row upon row of needle-sharp teeth that seemed to shift and align themselves even as I watched, like living, organic saws. Dark, viscous drool dripped from the corners of its maw, pooling on the stone. The stench that now assaulted me was overwhelming. The metallic sweetness I'd noticed earlier, but now amplified 1,000-fold, mixed with the musky odor of damp earth, stagnant water, and something else, something utterly foul and ancient, like rot and something utterly alien. It was the smell of a forgotten tomb, of something that had festered in the dark for far too long. I gagged, my stomach lurching, but no sound escaped my throat. Closer, the thing rasped again, its voice rumbling deep in its chest, vibrating through the very stones of the ruin. Its head tilted, a movement that seemed to defy natural anatomy, making the twisted bones of its neck creak audibly. "Look at me, little mouse, look upon the sleeper, now roused." My involuntary steps brought me within 10 feet of the creature. I was close enough to feel the cold emanate from its mass, close enough to see the minute details of its grotesque form, the way its skin rippled, the faint patterns of strange, phosphorescent fungi growing in patches on its hide, the slow, deliberate pulse of a vein in its powerful neck. It was magnificent in its horror, a grotesque masterpiece of the utterly alien. I was trapped, my feet cemented to the spot, my eyes locked onto its terrifying gaze. The two vortex eyes seemed to draw me in, to strip away my sanity, layer by agonizing layer. I felt utterly exposed, vulnerable, my mind screaming for oblivion. Fear, it rumbled, a sound that was both a statement and a question. Such a potent flavor, I have missed it. Its head dipped lower, bringing its fanged maw closer to my face. I could feel the hot, fetid breath on my skin, could see the glistening teeth, each one a miniature dagger. For so long, only the whispers of the dying, the fading echoes of sorrow, but you brought the spice of fresh terror. My mind raced, a frantic, desperate attempt to understand, to rationalize. What was this? A mutated bear? A cryptid? No, the intelligence in its eyes, the deliberate way it spoke, the twisted humor in its voice, this was something else, something truly, profoundly unnatural. The symbol, it hissed, its gaze flicking to the ground between us, to the carved vortex. You touched it, opened the way, didn't you, after all this time? A low, guttural laugh like stones grinding together emanated from its maw. Foolish child, the old man tried to warn you, didn't he? They always try, such futile efforts. The old-timer at the general store. Ain't nothing out there but trees and ghosts now, boy, keep your sense about you. He hadn't been talking about long-dead miners, he had been talking about this, about it, and I had chuckled it off. My first mistake, I'd thought, no, my fatal mistake. What are you?" I managed to croak, the words tearing at my dry throat. My voice was a pathetic, reedy sound against the creature's rumbling presence. The creature's head tilted again, a slow, deliberate movement that seemed to mock my fear. "What am I?" it echoed, the words heavy with a strange, ancient amusement. "A good question, little explorer, one that many have asked, always at the end. I am the sleeper, the keeper of the deep, the hunger and the stone. A name matters little. What matters is what I do." Its head lowered further, bringing its eyes almost level with mine. The amber and black swirls seemed to churn, growing more intense. I felt a pressure building in my skull, a cold, invading sensation that felt like ice water seeping into my brain. "You stumbled into a forgotten place," it continued, its voice a low thrum that vibrated through my bones. "A place where the veil between worlds is thin. The old ones, the villagers who built this place, they knew. They worshipped, they sacrificed, they kept me content. Then the faith faded, the fear dwindled, and I slept. But the roots of belief once planted are hard to kill. The symbol, it held a tiny thread of that old power. And you, little mouse, with your boundless curiosity and your clumsy touch, you tugged on that thread." My mind reeled. Sacrifices, worshipped. This was beyond anything I could have imagined. This wasn't just a cryptid, a monster. This was something out of myth, out of the deepest, darkest folklore. And I, with my camera and my multi-tool, had walked right into its maw. "What do you want?" I whispered, the words barely audible. The metallic sweet stench was making me dizzy, my vision starting to swim at the edges. The creature's grotesque mouth stretched, not quite a smile, but a horrifying parody of one. The rows of teeth glinted. "Want? Oh, little mouse, the question is not what I want, but what I need. And after so long in the cold earth, I need nourishment, sustenance, life. And you, my curious friend, are brimming with it." My blood ran cold, a fresh wave of terror washing over me, colder and deeper than any I'd felt before. It wasn't just going to scare me, it was going to eat me. "No," I choked out, a raw primal sound that seemed to tear from my very soul. "Please, no." The creature's eyes glowed brighter, reflecting my terror. "Please," it rumbled, and the sound was laced with a chilling amusement. Such a human word, so fragile, so futile. You sought the unknown, little explorer, and now the unknown has found you. Its head began to withdraw slowly, deliberately. For a fleeting second, a sliver of hope, utterly irrational, sparked within me. Was it going to let me go? No, this was too easy. As its head pulled back, its colossal body began to shift. The ground trembled faintly beneath my feet. The dark ivy rustled violently as if in agony. I heard the sickening sound of stone grinding on stone, of ancient mortar crumbling. The creature was rising. It stood, slowly unfurling itself, an immense, hulking shadow that seemed to blot out the sunlight filtering into the ruin. It was even larger than I had first imagined, easily 10 feet tall at its hunched shoulders, its bulk immense and terrifying. Its back was curved, a ridge of sharp, bone-like protrusions running down its spine. Its powerful limbs stretched, cracking and popping with unnatural sounds. With a final, agonizing groan, the last of the ivy tore away, revealing the full horror. It was a creature of primal, chaotic power, a being that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. It was an embodiment of ancient fear, a living nightmare. And then it took a step, a slow, heavy, deliberate step, its massive clawed foot sinking slightly into the damp earth. The ground trembled again, more violently this time. The ruined walls around us groaned, dust raining down from the collapsed ceiling. "Run," the creature whispered, its voice now softer, a chilling invitation. Run, little mouse, it adds to the flavor. The invisible tether that had bound me snapped. The control was gone, replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated adrenaline. My limbs, which moments before had been leaden and unresponsive, were now filled with a desperate, frantic energy. Every fiber of my being screamed one command: flee. I didn't think, I didn't plan, I just reacted. I spun on my heel, stumbling over my own feet, pushing through the brambles and rubble, ignoring the scrapes and cuts. My camera lay forgotten where it had fallen, a useless tool against such a monstrous reality. All that mattered was escape. I burst out of the ruin, gasping for breath, the cool morning air a sharp shock against my burning lungs. The clearing, which had seemed so peaceful and harmless moments ago, was now a death trap. My tent, my gear, everything I had brought felt like an anchor, holding me back. Behind me, I heard it, a low, guttural roar filled with a terrifying mix of power and malicious glee. The ground shook violently. I risked a glance over my shoulder. The creature was emerging from the ruin, a towering, dark silhouette against the pale morning sky. It was moving with an unnatural speed for something so massive, its long, powerful strides covering ground far faster than I could have imagined. Its eyes, those swirling vortexes of amber and black, were fixed on me, twin beacons of relentless hunger. "Run!" my mind shrieked again, more a primal command than a thought. I pumped my legs, pushing past the burning in my chest, the stitches in my side. I ran for the edge of the clearing, for the safety of the trees, for the faint, moss-covered wagon trail that led back to civilization. The forest, the dense, familiar forest, it was my only hope. If I could reach the cover of the trees, maybe I could lose it. Maybe I could hide. Maybe I could escape. I dove into the thick undergrowth, scrambling over fallen logs, pushing through thorny bushes, ignoring the tearing of my clothes and the stinging on my skin. The sounds of the creature crashing through the clearing behind me were deafening. Trees snapping, earth groaning, its heavy, thudding footsteps shaking the very ground. I didn't dare look back, I just ran blindly, instinctively, following the faintest hint of a path, my body screaming in protest. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but the fear, a cold, sharp blade, drove me onward. The forest was a maze of shadows and obstacles. Every twisted root, every low-hanging branch became a potential trap. I could hear the creature closing in, its raspy breathing now distinct, heavy, and wet, alarmingly close. It wasn't just chasing me, it was savoring the hunt. Suddenly, my foot caught on something unseen, a root, a loose stone. I stumbled, pitching forward, my hands scraping against the rough bark of a fallen tree. A searing pain shot through my ankle as it twisted beneath me. I cried out, a ragged gasp of pain and despair. I landed hard, my face pressed against the damp earth, the metallic sweet scent of the monster now overpowering, impossibly close. I couldn't move. My ankle screamed in protest. A shadow fell over me, a colossal shadow blotting out the faint morning light. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable. My body trembled uncontrollably, a pathetic, helpless heap on the forest floor. This was it. This was the end. My curiosity, my craving for solitude, my foolish arrogance had led me to this moment, to this monstrous end. A low chuckle, wet and deep, vibrated through the air directly above me. The very ground seemed to vibrate with it. Not yet, little mouse, the creature rumbled, its voice closer than I could have imagined, directly above me. The game has only just begun. I felt a massive, clawed hand close around my ankle. The grip was impossibly strong, cold and dry, yet with a strange electrical current running through it that sent jolts of agony up my leg. It wasn't just grabbing me, it was pulling, yanking me upward off the ground as if I weighed nothing. I gasped, a choked cry of pain and terror. My head hung upside down, the world blurring into a dizzying smear of green and brown. The blood rushed to my head, throbbing against my temples. I opened my eyes, disoriented, and saw its grotesque face just inches from mine, its twin vortex eyes burning into my soul. Such fear, it whispered, its breath hot and foul on my face. Such pure, exquisite terror, I will savor every drop. It began to drag me, not back towards the ruin, but deeper into the forest, pulling me effortlessly by my injured ankle. The pain was excruciating, a white-hot agony that threatened to overwhelm my senses. My head bounced against roots and stones. I screamed, a raw, wordless shriek that tore my throat, but it was swallowed by the vast, indifferent silence of the ancient woods. The creature moved quickly, easily navigating the dense terrain. It seemed to know these woods intimately, gliding through thickets and around ancient trees with an unnerving grace. My world became a blur of pain, fear, and the rhythmic thudding of my body being dragged across the unforgiving forest floor. I lost track of time, of direction. Minutes or hours could have passed. My throat was raw from screaming, my voice reduced to ragged gasps. My ankle throbbed with a dull, persistent ache that overshadowed all other pains. Eventually, the creature stopped. The motion ceased, and I was dropped unceremoniously, tumbling onto a bed of damp, decaying leaves. I lay there, gasping, my body trembling, unable to move, unable to even lift my head. My vision was swimming, dark spots dancing before my eyes. "We have arrived," the creature's voice rumbled, sounding slightly further away now, less directly above me. I forced my eyes open, blinking against the encroaching darkness. We were no longer in the relatively open forest. We were in a hollow, a natural depression in the earth, overgrown with ancient, gnarled trees whose branches were so densely interwoven that they formed a perpetual twilight. The air here was even colder, heavy and still, laden with the creature's foul stench. In the center of this hollow stood another ruin, but this was different from the stone building in the clearing. This was a circle of standing stones, massive gray monoliths, some broken, some tilting precariously, their surfaces covered in intricate carvings that mirrored the symbol I had found in the ruin. They formed a silent, menacing ring, a forgotten altar to something ancient and unspeakable. And in the very center of this stone circle, partially swallowed by the earth, was a dark, yawning crevice. It was not a natural fissure. It looked like a wound in the earth, a deep, black maw that radiated an unnatural cold. From its depths, I felt a faint, almost imperceptible hum, a low, resonant vibration that seemed to pluck at the strings of my very being. "This," the creature said, its voice filled with a strange, almost reverent quality, "is where I slumbered, where the old ones bound me, where they tried to keep me quiescent with their paltry offerings." It gestured with one massive clawed hand not towards me, but towards the gaping maw in the center of the stones. "And this is where you will join me." My eyes, wide with horror, darted from the crevice to the creature, which now stood directly beside the fissure, its massive form silhouetted against the faint, twilight gloom of the hollow. It was holding something, my camera bag. Your tools, it rumbled, turning the bag over in its claw. The lenses and metal clinked together. You sought to capture images, to record the forgotten. Well, now you are a part of the forgotten, a new chapter in the lore of the deep. With a sudden, violent movement, it tore the bag open, spilling my lenses, my spare batteries, my tripod head, everything onto the damp earth. Then, with another swift motion, it crushed my camera under its massive claw, reducing the expensive, intricate mechanism to a pathetic mess of shattered plastic, twisted metal, and broken glass. The sound of the crunching plastic echoed eerily in the silent hollow. My heart sank further into the pit of my stomach, not just because of the ruined equipment, but because it felt like a final, definitive severing of my connection to my old life, to my identity as an explorer. Without my camera, I was just a terrified man, utterly alone, utterly helpless. Symbolism, the creature mused, its voice devoid of emotion as it stared at the broken camera. Humans are so fond of it. The record keeper, now broken, poetic, don't you think? It lifted its head, its eyes fixing on me again. But we have other uses for you, little mouse, more primal uses. It stepped over to me, its colossal foot shaking the ground. I tried to scramble back, to crawl away, but my injured ankle screamed in protest, and my strength was completely gone. I could only lie there, whimpering, a broken thing. It reached down, not with its claw, but with a surprisingly delicate movement, with two immense, powerful fingers. It gripped the front of my shirt, pulling me upwards, easily lifting my entire body into the air. My feet dangled uselessly. I was suspended before its face again, the vortex eyes swirling, the foul breath washing over me. The old ones had a ritual, it explained, its voice a low, chilling narrative. They would bring the curious, the foolish, the lost to this very spot. They would bind them to the stones here in the cold light of the moon. And then they would offer them, a bridge between worlds, a vessel to sustain my awakening. My mind screamed it was going to use me as a sacrifice, just like the villagers from centuries ago. My worst fears were confirmed. I wasn't just going to die, I was going to be a part of some unspeakable, ancient ritual. No, please, I begged, tears streaming down my face, hot and stinging. Don't do this. The creature's gaze was unblinking. Oh, but I must. The long slumber leaves one depleted. And you, little mouse, are a feast of fear, a banquet of terror, perfect for a full awakening. It began to carry me, not towards the crevice, but towards one of the towering, standing stones. The stone was cold, rough, and covered in the same strange, primitive carvings I'd seen on the ruin and the symbol. As it brought me closer, I could see that some of the carvings seemed to glow faintly with a dark, inner light, as if pulsating with some dormant energy. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the drum of my impending doom. I thrashed weakly, kicking my legs, but my movements were futile against its immense strength. It pressed me against the cold, rough surface of the stone. I could feel the intricate carvings against my back, sharp and unforgiving. The stone hummed faintly, a low vibration that resonated deep within my bones. The binding, it whispered, and its immense fingers, still holding my shirt, now began to move, not releasing me, but pressing into my flesh, around my torso, then my wrists, then my ankles. It was a bizarre, almost gentle manipulation, but utterly terrifying. It wasn't physical ropes or chains, it was something else. An energy, a dark, unseen power that seemed to emanate from its touch, from the stone itself. I felt a cold, paralyzing sensation spread through my limbs, starting from where its fingers touched me, radiating outwards. It was like ice water in my veins, followed by a profound numbness. My struggles weakened, then ceased entirely. I could still feel, could still think, but my body was no longer responsive. I was pinned against the stone, utterly immobile, utterly helpless. There, the creature rumbled, pulling its fingers away from my now bound form. I was held fast, fused to the stone, as if part of it. The faint, dark glow from the carvings on the stone intensified, encompassing my body, pulsing in rhythm with the strange hum from the crevice. The creature stepped back, observing me with its malevolent, swirling eyes. It stretched its massive body, a slow, deliberate arching movement that radiated immense power. The stench of it grew even stronger, metallic and sweet and foul. "You are the bridge, little mouse," it declared, its voice now booming, echoing through the hollow. "The conduit, and through you the final slumber shall be broken. The world shall remember what it has forgotten." It turned its back to me, its gaze fixed on the gaping crevice in the center of the stone circle. The hum from the crevice intensified, growing louder, deeper, vibrating through the very air. The ground began to tremble steadily, growing stronger. The creature raised its massive, clawed hands, spreading its fingers wide. It extended them towards the crevice, palms facing inwards, as if gathering something from the air or channeling something into the earth. A dark, swirling mist began to rise from the crevice, not like natural fog, but like an unholy vapor, thick and black, pulsing with a faint crimson light within. It writhed and coiled, rising higher and higher, obscuring the standing stones, obscuring the trees, until the hollow was filled with a swirling maelstrom of shadow and dread. The hum was now a deafening roar, a cacophony of ancient power that vibrated through my very bones, shaking my teeth, blurring my vision. The carvings on the stone that bound me glowed with an angry, pulsating light, and I felt a searing pain rip through my body, as if molten lead were being poured into my veins. It was the deepest, most profound agony I had ever experienced, a pain that transcended the physical, reaching into the very core of my being. I screamed, but no sound escaped. My mouth was open, my throat hoarse, but the roar of the awakening energy swallowed my cry. My vision swam, images flashing before my eyes, the old man at the store, the glowing arch, my camera falling. Regrets, failures, all compressed into a single, agonizing moment. The creature stood resolute in the swirling darkness, its form a gigantic silhouette against the crimson flashes within the mist. It seemed to be drawing something from the crevice, something immense and powerful, something that stretched the very fabric of reality. The pain in my body intensified, reaching a crescendo. I felt my life force being drawn out of me, pulled by an unseen force flowing through the glowing carvings on the stone, coursing into the swirling vortex of dark mist. I was being consumed not by teeth and claws, but by an ancient, hungry power. I was merely a vessel, a conduit for something truly monstrous. My vision flickered, the world twisting and distorting. The glowing eyes of the creature, those terrible amber and black vortexes, were the last things I saw, shining through the crimson mist, reflecting a hunger that was now finally fully sated. They seemed to smile, a final, triumphant, malevolent grin. Then everything went black, not the gentle darkness of unconsciousness, but an absolute, crushing void. A silent, freezing emptiness that was deeper than any sleep, colder than any grave. I felt myself dissolve, my very essence unraveling, becoming one with the darkness. But just as the last spark of consciousness threatened to extinguish, a new sensation flickered. Not pain, not fear, but a cold, distant echo. A memory, perhaps, or a fragment of thought that was not my own. A flicker of recognition, not of a person, but of a place. A vast, shadowy landscape, dimly lit by a cold, alien sun. And in that landscape, countless figures moving slowly, deliberately, their forms indistinct, their purpose unknown. A glimpse into another world, another reality, brought forth by the creature's awakening. Then that too faded, swallowed by the profound, eternal dark. There was nothing. No sensation, no thought, no self, just an echoing emptiness, a chilling blankness where I once was. For what felt like an eternity, I drifted in that void. Time had no meaning. Existence had no anchor. I was nothing, yet I was aware of being nothing. A silent, disembodied witness to my own obliteration. Then a flicker, a pinprick of light far in the distance, barely perceptible in the suffocating black. It was cold, blue, and utterly alien. It grew, slowly, steadily, not approaching me, but as if I were somehow being pulled towards it. As it expanded, it revealed shapes. Formless, shifting shapes like shadows dancing on the edge of perception. Whispers, faint and indistinct, began to echo in the void, carried on an unseen current, sounds that were not words but pure, raw emotion, sorrow, despair, and ancient, consuming hunger. The blue light coalesced, forming a tunnel, a swirling vortex of shimmering azure and indigo. It was cold, so cold that it felt like it would shatter my non-existent being. But it was also familiar, a dreadful familiarity that I couldn't place, like a nightmare half-remembered. I was being drawn into it inexorably, helplessly. The whispers grew louder, forming into a chilling chorus, a lament of countless voices, all expressing the same primal despair. It was the sound of souls lost, of minds broken, of spirits consumed. As I entered the vortex of blue light, a new sensation surged through me, a jolt of agonizing pressure, as if my non-existent body was being reformed, crushed, and stretched all at once. My being, scattered and dissolved, was violently pulled back together, forced into a shape that felt both familiar and utterly alien. My senses, dormant for an eternity, began to violently reawaken. First the cold, a bone-deep, pervasive cold that seeped into my very core. Then the sound, the whispers now a cacophony mingled with a low, constant hum like distant machinery or the thrum of ancient power. And then a smell, not the metallic, sweet stench of the creature, but something else. Something sterile yet organic, like ozone and fresh blood and ancient dust. My eyes snapped open, or rather, something snapped open, for the vision that greeted me was not my own. I was no longer in the hollow, no longer on the stone. I was standing in a vast, cavernous space, dimly lit by the eerie, pulsing blue light that seemed to emanate from the very walls. The walls themselves were not stone, but a smooth, dark, obsidian-like material, cool and slick to the touch, covered in strange, glowing runes that writhed and shifted like living things. The space was immense, stretching into the gloom, its ceiling lost in shadow. It felt ancient, unimaginably old, yet impossibly clean, like a tomb kept in pristine condition for millennia. And I wasn't alone. Around me, scattered across the cavern floor, were figures, dozens, perhaps hundreds of them. They stood motionless, utterly still, like statues carved from shadow. They were human, or at least they once were. Their skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched taut over emaciated frames. Their eyes were hollow, empty sockets, orbs of dull gray that reflected nothing. They were clad in simple, tattered garments that looked like the remnants of old cloth, centuries old. They were bound, not by ropes, but by faint, shimmering blue lines of energy that radiated from the glowing runes on the walls, wrapping around their wrists, their ankles, their torsos, holding them in place. They were connected, each to each, and all to the pulsating blue light. They were like a silent, ghostly choir, their faces etched with eternal despair. I looked down at my own hands. They were pale, thin, almost translucent. My skin was cold to the touch. I raised them, flexing my fingers. They responded, but felt distant, not fully my own. It was as if I was controlling them from a great distance through a thick pane of glass. My gaze drifted to my body. I was clad in similar tattered garments, gray and ancient, and I too was bound. Faint blue lines of energy snaked around my wrists, my ankles, my chest, connecting me to the glowing runes on the wall. I was one of them, one of the silent, spectral figures. A wave of profound terror, far colder and deeper than anything I'd felt before, washed over me. I wasn't dead. Or I was, but not in the way I understood. I was something else. A prisoner, a remnant, a ghost trapped in a fleshless cage. A faint whisper echoed in my mind, not a voice, but a thought, a cold, alien presence that settled deep in my consciousness. Welcome, newcomer, welcome to the fold. It was the creature's voice, but not spoken aloud. It was within me, a silent, pervasive thought chilling me to the core. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. My throat was dry, my voice stolen. My limbs, despite my will, remained utterly still. I was rooted to the spot, just like the others. The blue light in the cavern pulsed, and with each throb the whispers intensified, filling my mind with a torrent of alien emotions. Despair, resignation, a profound, crushing emptiness. It was the collective consciousness of all the bound figures, all the lost souls trapped in this endless prison. Their thoughts, their feelings were now bleeding into mine. I was seeing through their eyes, hearing through their ears, feeling through their fading bodies. A kaleidoscope of fragmented memories flashed through my mind. Glimpses of fear, of capture, of being dragged to a ritual stone, of a looming, shadowy form of pain, and then this cavern. The same terror, the same agony, replicated countless times over centuries, millennia. It was an endless, living tomb, populated by the ghosts of the creature's past victims, their life force drained, their bodies sustained by the eerie blue energy, their minds merged into a collective prison of despair. I was one of them now. The alien thought, the creature's voice in my head, returned. You are useful, little mouse. A fresh mind, a new channel. Your curiosity led you here, and now it will serve. You will see, you will witness, you will remember for me. Remember for it, what did that mean? As if in answer, the blue light pulsed brighter and the cavern floor began to shift. Not the whole floor, but a central section directly in front of me. Two massive, obsidian-like slabs, each etched with glowing runes, slowly parted, retracting into the ground with a low, grinding sound. Beneath them, a deeper, darker chasm was revealed. It radiated an even more profound cold, a raw, primal essence of absence, and from its depths something began to rise. It was immense, far larger than the creature I had encountered in the hollow. It was formless, a swirling mass of shadow and raw energy, shot through with veins of crimson light that pulsed like a monstrous heartbeat. It was not a physical being, but a force, a living, ancient, cosmic horror that defied definition. This was the true sleeper. The creature in the hollow was merely an aspect, a messenger, a manifestation. This was the source, the true ancient hunger. The whispers in my mind, the collective voices of the bound, swelled to an unbearable shriek, a chorus of utter terror and despair. They were terrified of this. They were terrified of this, an ancient, primordial terror that was not a sound, but a raw, unfiltered emotion that ripped through my merged consciousness. It was the collective shriek of every soul trapped here, echoing the fear that coursed through my own translucent veins. The blue light in the cavern pulsed erratically, mirroring the entity's emergence. From the gaping chasm, the monstrous, formless mass rose higher, slowly, inexorably. It was a swirling vortex of shadow and raw energy, shot through with veins of pulsating crimson light. It defied all known physics, all concepts of form or matter. It was immense, so vast that it seemed to consume the very air, growing, expanding, filling the impossible cavern with its sheer, overwhelming presence. It wasn't just big, it was infinite, as if a piece of the cosmos itself had ripped through reality and settled into this subterranean chamber. The hum, which had been a constant thrum, now swelled into a deafening, resonant roar. It wasn't a sound heard with ears, but felt in the deepest recesses of my non-existent being. It vibrated through the obsidian walls, through the shimmering blue energy lines that bound us, and through the core of my spectral self. My vision blurred, overwhelmed by the sheer, unbridled power. The glowing runes on the walls writhed and pulsed with frantic intensity, like neural pathways overloading. The creature I had encountered in the hollow, the aspect I now understood, was a mere shadow compared to this. This was the true source, the origin of the hunger, the ultimate embodiment of the ancient horror. Its presence was so vast, so utterly alien that my mind, even in its fractured, merged state, struggled to comprehend it. It was a universe of malevolence, a singularity of dread. The creature's silent voice in my head returned, a cold, alien command cutting through the cacophony of terror. Witness, remember. And then, just as the entity seemed to reach its zenith, its swirling mass touching the distant, shadowed ceiling of the cavern, it solidified, not into a solid form, but into a more defined, albeit still terrifying, shape. It was still a vortex of shadow and crimson light, but now it possessed a terrible, abstract geometry. Massive, shifting angles emerged from the chaos, forming colossal, interlocking planes that hummed with energy. From within these geometric structures, hundreds, thousands, millions of the vortex eyes, identical to the ones on the lesser creature, blinked into existence. Each one a swirling void of amber and black, reflecting nothing, but emitting that faint, sickly internal glow. They arrayed themselves across its immense surface, an impossible constellation of hungry gazes, all fixed not on us the bound, but on something beyond, something that lay beyond the cavern walls. The terror of the other bound souls intensified, a wave of despair that threatened to drown my nascent consciousness. It sees, it remembers. The whispers screamed in my mind, not just from the figures around me, but from the very stones, from the air itself. The entity, now a mountain of abstract horror, stretched forth a limb. It was not an arm, but a shifting, multifaceted construct of shadow and crimson light, tapering into something that resembled a gigantic, segmented claw, but not one made of flesh or bone. It moved with agonizing slowness, extending towards a section of the obsidian wall directly across from where I stood. As it approached, the glowing runes on that section of the wall pulsed furiously, and the wall itself began to shimmer, to distort, as if the very fabric of reality was being stretched thin. The air crackled with raw energy, ozone sharp and biting. Then, with a soundless rupture that nonetheless shook the cavern to its foundations, the wall dissolved. It didn't break or crumble, it simply ceased to be, replaced by a swirling void of deep, impenetrable black. And within that void, far in the distance, a pinprick of light, a cold, distant blue. It was not a light from this world. It was the same alien blue I had glimpsed in the void before my awakening. A gateway, a portal. The entity's massive claw reached into this newly formed void as if testing the waters. The portal rippled and pulsed in response, expanding slightly. The whispers in my mind coalesced into a single, terrifying understanding. It is opening the way to the other side, to where it truly hungers. The creature's silent voice in my head, now a booming, pervasive presence, resonated through my being. Observe, newcomer. Witness the great work. You are the lens through which I shall remember what has been, and what shall be. I understood with a sickening clarity that pierced through the terror. I was not just a prisoner, I was an unwilling observer, my consciousness somehow linked to this monstrous being, forced to perceive and record whatever it chose to reveal. My explorer's curse amplified a millionfold. The entity began to draw something from the void, slowly, carefully, as if retrieving something incredibly fragile or immensely heavy. At first it was just motes of blue light swirling like cosmic dust coalescing around the entity's claw. Then forms began to emerge. Faint, ethereal shapes, indistinct at first, but slowly gaining definition as they were pulled through the portal. They were ships, or at least they resembled ships, not of metal or wood, but of solidified starlight, of dark, gleaming obsidian, of impossible angles and glowing, arcane runes. They were vast, silent, and ancient, drifting through the blue void like spectral leviathans. And as they emerged one by one into the cavern, they seemed to shrink, or perhaps the cavern expanded to contain them, for they settled gently onto the obsidian floor, smaller yet still immense, each one large enough to swallow our entire clearing back on Earth. Hundreds of these ships materialized, filling the vast space with their silent, menacing presence. Each one pulsed with its own faint, internal blue light, casting long, shifting shadows across the bound figures and the glowing runes on the walls. They were not empty. Through their translucent obsidian hulls, I could vaguely discern movement within. Silhouettes of alien beings, countless and indistinct, moving with a silent, purposeful grace. My children, the creatures thought, reverberated through me, a strange mix of pride and ancient hunger. The harvest fleet. Finally, they come. The terror of the bound souls reached a new pitch, a collective wail of despair that threatened to tear my merged consciousness apart. The harvest, it begins again. My spectral body, bound against the cold stone, trembled. The implication was horrifying. The entity had been sleeping, gathering strength perhaps, but it had also been waiting for its children, its harvest fleet, to arrive. And we, the bound, were not just a power source for its awakening, but a grim testament to its ultimate purpose. The portal behind the ships began to close, the swirling blackness receding, the obsidian wall reforming with a silent, rippling motion. The entity's vast, geometric form seemed to contract slightly, its countless eyes still fixed on the newly arrived fleet. Then the true horror began to unfold. From the first of the obsidian ships, a ramp of shimmering blue light extended, touching the cavern floor. Out of its depths, beings began to emerge. They were not like the aspect I had encountered, not a monstrous composite of beast and shadow. these were different. They were tall, incredibly slender, with elongated limbs and bodies that seemed to shimmer, as if their forms were not entirely solid. Their skin was a deep, iridescent black, almost absorbing the blue light of the cavern. They had no discernible faces, merely smooth, ovoid heads, but where eyes should have been, there were small, glowing pinpricks of blue light that pulsed in rhythm with the cavern. Their movements were fluid, graceful, almost ethereal, yet radiating an undeniable power and menace. They carried no weapons I recognized, but their long, tapered fingers ended in razor-sharp claws that shimmered with the same blue energy. These were the entity's children, its servants, its harvesters. They fanned out across the cavern floor, moving silently, purposefully towards the bound figures. My own spectral body tensed, the collective fear of the others now a tangible, suffocating weight. One of the black-skinned beings approached my section of the wall. Its head tilted slightly, and one of the blue pinprick eyes seemed to focus on me. There was no expression on its smooth face, no discernible emotion, yet I felt an ancient, cold scrutiny. It stopped directly in front of me, its slender form casting a long, wavering shadow. It raised one of its elongated, clawed hands. The blue energy at its fingertips intensified, crackling faintly. I could feel the cold emanate from it, an even deeper, more profound cold than that which already permeated the cavern. The new harvest is rich, the entity's thought echoed in my mind, a chilling whisper. It has been a long time since the last. The world has grown complacent. The being's clawed hand extended, and one of its fingers gently touched the shimmering blue energy line that bound my wrist. The touch was like ice, instantly numbing, yet sending a strange, sharp spark through my system. The blue line of energy pulsed in response, and I felt a faint, almost imperceptible surge of something being drawn from me, an essence, a resonance. It wasn't a draining of life force in the way the entity had consumed me in the hollow. This was different, more subtle, like a tuning fork being struck, setting off a vibration, a resonance within my spectral being. The whisper of the bound souls intensified in my mind. They mark us, they prepare us for the final taking. The black-skinned being moved on, its silent, deliberate movements echoing through the cavern. It repeated the process with the other bound figures, touching each one, causing the blue energy lines to pulse. A slow, methodical, terrifying ritual. The entity in the center of the cavern, the immense, geometric horror, remained still, its countless vortex eyes fixed on something unseen beyond the cavern. It was like a silent conductor overseeing its symphony of terror. Hours passed, or perhaps mere moments. Time was fluid, distorted in this place. Eventually, all the black-skinned harvesters had touched each of the bound figures. They returned to their ships, melting back into the obsidian hulls, the ramps of blue light retracting. The cavern was silent once more, save for the constant, low hum and the frantic whispers of the trapped souls in my mind. The air in the cavern began to thicken. The blue light intensified, pulsing with a new, frantic rhythm. The ground beneath us began to vibrate, not with the deep tremor of the entity, but with a rapid, almost electrical thrum. The resonance, the entity's thought boomed in my mind, loud and clear. The fold is ready. The gateway must be strengthened. I looked towards the vast, dormant form of the true sleeper. Its countless eyes now seemed to focus inward on the chasm from which it had emerged. The blue energy lines that bound us all began to glow with an agonizing intensity, and I felt the drain begin again, far more potent than before. My essence, my very being, was being siphoned, not to awaken the entity, but to fuel something else. The whispers of the bound souls were no longer fragmented. They coalesced into a unified, despairing wail in my mind. It drains us, it uses us, we are the fuel. The pain was excruciating, far worse than anything I had felt before. It was not a physical pain, for my body was spectral, but an agony of the soul, a ripping apart of my consciousness, a shredding of my very identity. I felt as if I were being stretched thin, like a fragile membrane pulled taut to its breaking point. The blue energy flowed from my bound form, through the glowing runes on the wall, and into the chasm at the center of the cavern, a torrent of pure, raw energy. The chasm pulsed with an angry, consuming light, and from its depths a new sound emerged, a high-pitched, whining keen, like immense machinery being powered up, a sound that grated on my nerves and threatened to shatter my consciousness. The entity in the center of the cavern began to change again. Its geometric form shimmered, its angles shifting, growing even larger, reaching towards the cavern's ceiling. Its countless eyes glowed with fierce intensity, reflecting the escalating power. The gateway to the fold must be fully opened, its thought resonated through me, cold and absolute. The conduit prepared, the path cleared. I understood now. We, the bound, were not just sustenance. We were a network, a grid of consciousness being used to power and stabilize a gateway. A gateway to the fold, to the alien landscape I had glimpsed in the void. And the fold, that was where the harvest truly occurred. As the energy drain intensified, my awareness began to fragment further. I was no longer just myself, or myself merged with the few dozen souls around me. I was seeing, feeling, being all of them at once. 1,000 past lives, 1,000 moments of terror and despair converging in my mind. I saw flashes of different eras. Primitive, antler-clad humans being dragged to stone circles, their faces etched with ancient fear. Roman soldiers, bewildered and screaming, falling into chasms. Medieval villagers clutching wooden crosses, consumed by shadows. Pioneer families lost in unfamiliar woods, finding the wrong ruins. Each one a thread woven into this tapestry of despair, each one a sacrifice, fueling this monstrous entity. And now I was the latest thread. The cavern itself seemed to warp and twist around me, the obsidian walls flowing like liquid, the glowing runes swirling into kaleidoscopic patterns. The high-pitched keen from the chasm reached an unbearable crescendo, and then, with a final, violent shudder that ripped through my spectral being, it broke. The sound shattered, dissolving into a profound, ringing silence. The blue light in the cavern dimmed, then flickered, before settling into a more stable, yet still eerie, glow. The energy drained from my body and from all the bound figures ceased. I sagged, or felt as if I sagged, against the cold stone, my consciousness fragmented, my mind reeling from the torrent of alien memories and the overwhelming pain. The collective despair of the other souls, though no longer actively draining, was a heavy shroud wrapped around me. The entity in the center of the cavern, the true sleeper, slowly began to contract, its vast, geometric form receding, its countless eyes dimming slightly. It had completed its task. The gateway was fully opened. And then the chasm in the center of the stone circle began to expand, not just in width, but in depth, in scope. It stretched, tearing at the very fabric of the cavern floor until it was no longer a chasm, but a vast, shimmering portal of pure blue energy. It wasn't the cold, distant blue I'd seen before. This was a vibrant, living blue, swirling and pulsing, radiating an immense, cold power. And through it I saw it, the fold. It was a landscape utterly alien, vast and desolate. A sky of bruised purples and sickly greens, perpetually twilight. Towering, skeletal structures like petrified trees or ruined cities clawed at the alien sky. The ground was a mosaic of jagged, iridescent crystals and dark, viscous pools that reflected the strange light. And everywhere, moving through this impossible terrain, were figures. Not the black-skinned harvesters, but countless indistinct shapes like shadows moving slowly, deliberately, towards an unseen focal point. My domain, the entity's thought echoed, resonant with ancient power, where the true harvest is reaped. The souls of the lost, the minds of the broken, all flow into the fold. Then the black-skinned harvesters began to emerge from their obsidian ships once more. But this time they carried strange devices. Not weapons, but intricate, glowing contraptions of blue light and dark metal, slender and delicate, yet radiating a powerful hum. They moved with renewed purpose, their blue pinprick eyes fixed on the bound figures. The whispers in my mind were frantic now, a cacophony of fear and resignation. The taking, they come for us. The harvesters approached the bound figures, one by one. I watched in horrified fascination as they selected a figure, a pale, emaciated woman with hollow eyes. One of the beings brought its glowing device close to her head. The device pulsed, and the blue energy lines binding her flared with agonizing intensity. The woman's spectral form shuddered violently. A silent scream tore through my merged consciousness, a soundless shriek of utter agony that was not just hers, but the collective memory of every soul in the cavern experiencing the same fate. Her eyes, those dull gray orbs, suddenly glowed with a desperate blue light, and then with a final, violent spasm, her body went slack. But she didn't die. Instead, a shimmering, translucent orb of pure blue energy, about the size of a human head, rose from her body. It pulsed with an internal light, radiating a faint, high-pitched hum. The black-skinned harvester carefully scooped it up with its clawed hands, cradling it as if it were precious. The essence the entity's thought explained with a detached, chilling scientific precision. The core of consciousness, pure and potent, the true sustenance for the fold. Her physical form, now an empty husk, will remain as a conduit. The harvester turned, carrying the glowing orb, and silently, gracefully, stepped into the shimmering blue portal of the fold. It vanished instantly, swallowed by the alien landscape. Another harvester approached another bound figure, a skeletal man with matted hair. The same agonizing process. The device pulsed. The body shuddered. The blue orb of essence rose and was carried into the fold. One by one, the harvesters moved amongst the bound, extracting the glowing orbs of essence, carrying them into the vast blue portal. The cavern became a silent, methodical assembly line of soul extraction. Each time an orb was taken, a wave of profound, gut-wrenching despair washed over my merged consciousness, a fragment of my own being seeming to be torn away. It was a terrifying premonition of my own inevitable fate. The whispers in my mind grew fainter as more and more of the orbs were taken. The collective consciousness was being diminished, its voices slowly being silenced. The empty husks of the bodies remained, still bound by the blue energy lines, their hollow eyes staring blankly into the cavern. My own spectral body trembled with a desperate, primal fear. I was next. I knew it. There was no escape, no hope, My explorer's journey had led me to become fuel for an ancient cosmic horror. A harvester approached me, its smooth, ovoid head tilted, its blue pinprick eyes focusing on my translucent form. It raised its glowing device. The humming intensified. "Your turn, newcomer," the entity's thought resonated through me, not with malice but with a cold, almost indifferent finality. A fresh consciousness. A rich flavor, perfect for the fold. I closed my eyes, or tried to, for my spectral body seemed to resist even that. The device pulsed, humming, closer, closer. I felt the familiar, agonizing drain begin, but this time it was different. It was focused, precise. It felt like a surgical tearing, a slow, methodical extraction of my very self. The pain was beyond comprehension. It was a scream that ripped through the cosmos, yet was utterly silent. I felt my memories, my experiences, my personality being pulled from me, coalescing into that glowing orb. My life flashing before my eyes, not as a quick montage, but as a slow, agonizing unraveling. My childhood, my expeditions, my solitary joys, my fears, all being stripped away, rendered into pure energy. And with it came the overwhelming, alien despair of the thousands of souls whose essences had already been taken. Their combined fear, their endless sorrow, now pouring into the void of my emptying mind, filling the space where my own identity once was. Just as the final fragment of my consciousness felt poised to detach, just as the last spark of my identity flickered, a sudden, blinding flash of light erupted from the cavern's ceiling. It was not the blue light of the fold, nor the crimson of the entity. This was a stark, pure white light, searing and unexpected, like a lightning bolt unleashed within the cavern. The entire cavern was plunged into chaos. The entity in the center, the true sleeper, shuddered violently, its geometric form rippling, its countless vortex eyes blinking erratically. The black-skinned harvester in front of me recoiled, its glowing device sputtering, its blue pinprick eyes flashing with what seemed like confusion, almost pain. The mighty hum of the fold portal wavered, the vibrant blue light flickering, dimming, threatened to collapse. The obsidian walls of the cavern groaned, and the glowing runes on their surface pulsed wildly, erratically, as if struggling to maintain their integrity. The white light intensified, forming into a concentrated beam, focused on the cavern's ceiling, then sweeping across the space, revealing something I hadn't noticed before. High above, almost invisible in the gloom, there were fissures, cracks in the obsidian that seemed to have been sealed but were now fracturing, letting through this new, blinding light. And then a sound, not the hum, not the keening, not the whispers, a sound I hadn't heard since I was dragged into this nightmare, a human sound. A loud, reverberating bang, followed by a high-pitched whine. It was familiar, a gunshot. The sound echoed through the cavern, utterly out of place, utterly jarring. The harvester in front of me shrieked, a sound like grinding metal, and recoiled further, dropping its glowing device. The device hit the obsidian floor with a muffled clang, its light flickering out. The harvester clutched its smooth, ovoid head, its blue eyes dimming, and then impossibly it collapsed to the floor, its iridescent black body dissolving into a shower of sparkling blue dust. My mind, still fractured and in agony, struggled to process. A harvester dissolved by a gunshot. Before I could fully comprehend, another flash of white light, another bang, this time a different harvester, one that was approaching another bound figure, shuddered and dissolved into dust. Panic, alien and human, gripped the cavern. The remaining harvesters, these silent, ethereal beings, were now reacting with what could only be described as fear. They scattered, their graceful movements turning frantic, some running back towards their ships, others trying to melt into the shadows. The immense entity, the true sleeper, let out a silent roar that rattled my very being. Intruders, how? Its countless vortex eyes now swiveled, focusing on the ceiling, on the sources of the white light and the strange, explosive sounds. Then, from one of the widening fissures in the ceiling, a figure dropped. Not a black-skinned harvester, not a spectral, bound soul. It was a human. Clad in a dark, form-fitting suit, heavily armored, its head covered by a helmet with a visor that glowed faintly green. In its hands, it carried a weapon that looked like a sleek, advanced rifle, far beyond anything I had ever seen. The weapon pulsed with a faint blue energy, and it was from this weapon that the white flashes and the bangs were emanating. More figures dropped from the ceiling, one after another, their movements precise, practiced, deadly. 5 of them, all clad in the same dark, armored suits, all wielding the same glowing, blue energy rifles. They landed silently on the obsidian floor, fanning out, their green visors scanning the cavern. "Move, clear the perimeter," a voice boomed, amplified and distorted through the helmet of the laid figure. It was a human voice, sharp, authoritative, filled with an urgent command. The harvesters that hadn't dissolved were quickly cut down, dissolving into blue dust as the armored figures opened fire. The blue energy bolts from their rifles sliced through the air, hitting their targets with devastating accuracy. The chaos intensified. The true sleeper roared again, its immense form rippling violently. It extended one of its vast, geometric limbs towards the human intruders, a gesture of profound rage and ancient power. But before it could fully unleash its wrath, another white flash, another deafening bang, and a concentrated beam of blue energy slammed into one of the sleeper's many vortex eyes. The entity recoiled, a wave of pain, alien and terrible, reverberating through my merged consciousness. "Impossible," its silent voice screamed in my mind. "How can they harm me?" "Targeting primary nexus points," the leader barked. "Focus fire, don't let it stabilize." The armored figures, seemingly unaffected by the sheer, overwhelming presence of the cosmic horror, moved with calculated precision. They unleashed a barrage of blue energy bolts, each one striking a different vortex eye or a glowing rune on the sleeper's geometric body. The sleeper, for the first time, seemed vulnerable. It roared, a soundless scream of pain and fury that vibrated through the entire cavern. Its massive form writhed, struggling against the assault. The fold portal, which had been a stable, vibrant blue, now flickered wildly, the alien landscape beyond blurring and distorting. "Hold the line on the portal," another armored figure shouted. "We can't let it expand. Containment is key." 2 of the armored figures broke off from the main group, their weapons blazing, focusing their fire on the shimmering blue portal of the fold. Energy bolts slammed into its surface, causing it to ripple and shrink slightly. The leader of the group, a stocky figure whose armor seemed thicker than the others, approached the stone wall where I was bound. Its green visor scanned my spectral form and the other bound figures around me. "Survivors," the leader muttered, their voice a low rumble. "Unlikely, but we're here for the source and to stabilize the containment." My mind, still reeling from the energy drain and the shock of the sudden invasion, struggled to comprehend. Who were these people? What were they doing here? How did they know about this place? And more importantly, could they free us? The leader moved past me, approaching one of the empty husks of the bound figures, the one from which the essence had already been taken. They knelt, examining the lifeless form with a strange, detached interest. The fold is already active, the leader stated, their voice grim. This one's gone, too late. They rose, their gaze sweeping over the remaining bound figures, including me. The others, minimal chance of full reintegration, but the primary goal is the sleeper. My hopes, which had flared so brightly with their arrival, dimmed once more. Minimal chance of full reintegration. It meant we were effectively dead, our identities gone, our essences extracted. The battle raged. The sleeper, despite its immense power, was clearly disoriented by the unexpected attack. The blue energy bolts from the human weapons were having a real effect, causing its geometric form to shudder and convulse. Its silent roars of pain were constant now, tearing through my merged consciousness. "It's retreating," one of the armored figures yelled. "It's trying to reseal the portal." Indeed, the vast, shimmering blue portal of the fold was contracting rapidly, the alien landscape beyond shrinking, as if being sucked back into nothingness. The two figures firing at it redoubled their efforts, but it seemed the sleeper was pouring its remaining power into closing the breach. "No, don't let it close," the leader roared. "If it closes, we lose the opportunity. Keep it open." The remaining harvesters, surprisingly resilient, were making a last-ditch effort to attack the human intruders. They swarmed, their blue pinprick eyes glowing malevolently. But the armored figures were too well-trained, too well-equipped. They cut through the harvesters with ruthless efficiency, their blue energy bolts dissolving the alien beings into sparkling dust. The sleeper, with a final, earth-shattering roar that shook the entire cavern, began to glow with an intense crimson light. Its geometric form pulsed violently. Then, with a soundless implosion, it began to shrink, to condense, to withdraw back into the chasm from which it had emerged. The colossal form, once so vast and all-consuming, receded rapidly, like a tide pulling back from the shore. "It's going back to sleep," the leader yelled, their voice laced with frustration. "Damn it, fire everything, keep that chasm open." All 5 armored figures turned their weapons on the rapidly shrinking chasm, unleashing a continuous torrent of blue energy bolts. The chasm pulsed with a frantic crimson, struggling against the onslaught, but the sleeper was clearly retreating, its power diminished. The fold portal, now unattended by the sleeper, had shrunk to a fraction of its original size, a mere shimmering sliver of blue light. It was on the verge of closing completely. "Hold the line on the chasm," the leader commanded, then turned to one of the other figures. "Jenkins, stabilize the fold portal. We need to keep a tether." A figure, presumably Jenkins, detached from the group and dashed towards the shrinking portal. They planted a strange, tripod-like device near its edge. The device hummed to life, emitting a steady, focused beam of green light that locked onto the portal, holding it open, preventing its final closure. The portal, now stabilized by the device, shimmered, no longer shrinking, but no longer expanding either. A narrow, shimmering window into the alien fold remained. The remaining armored figures continued to fire into the chasm, but it was clear the sleeper was winning its retreat. The crimson light faded, the chasm shrinking smaller and smaller until, with a final, barely perceptible shimmer, it sealed itself shut. The obsidian floor, though scarred by the battle, was whole once more. A profound silence descended upon the cavern. The fight was over. The sleeper had retreated, its full awakening prevented, but the fold portal remained, held open by Jenkins's device. The armored figures lowered their weapons, their green visors sweeping the cavern. Their movements were still tense, but the immediate threat had passed. The leader approached the chasm, examining the now sealed floor. "Damn it," they muttered again, their voice filled with quiet fury. "So close. Another few minutes and we could have crippled it, sent it back to a deeper slumber." "At least it's contained, Commander," Jenkins's voice came over the comms, slightly tinny. "The portal is stable. We have a window." "A window, yes," the commander replied, turning towards the portal. "But to what cost? Another millennia before it tries again. We need to understand its capabilities, its vulnerabilities." The commander's gaze drifted over the bound figures once more. They approached me again, their green visor focusing on my spectral form. My mind, though still fractured, now felt a strange new clarity. The departure of the sleeper's overwhelming presence, the cessation of the energy drain, had allowed some of my own consciousness to reassert itself. I was still bound, still translucent, but I felt more me. "The subject's consciousness reintegration looks partial," the commander mused aloud, their voice calm and analytical. "Still active, fascinating, most are just empty husks." They reached out not with a weapon, but with a gloved hand and carefully touched one of the blue energy lines binding my wrist. This time there was no pain, no drain, just a faint, cold hum. "The binding is still active," the commander observed. "Residual energy signature from the sleeper. It uses these unfortunate souls as conduits, a kind of biological battery, even after their essence is taken, keeps the larger system stable." My mind raced. Biological battery, conduit, so even if they could free me, there was still the question of what was left, and if my essence had been taken into the fold. "Commander," another voice, a female one, came over the comms. "Scanning the remaining bound. We have a few with residual mental activity. This one," she indicated a figure near the commander with her weapon, "seems to be actively attempting to communicate through the neural network." The commander's head snapped up, their visor fixing on the indicated figure, then back to me. "Neural network, you mean the Fold's collective consciousness, the one powered by the extracted essences?" "Affirmative, Commander," the female voice replied. "It appears some residual neural pathways are still active within the physical forms, allowing limited communication through the same Fold channel the sleeper uses. This subject here," she gestured, "is broadcasting raw despair and a name. Evelyn." My mind, though still reeling, jolted. Evelyn, my sister. The thought was like a sharp, agonizing stab to my soul. Was she here too? Another victim? No, I had no sister. My name was Adam. Then a new wave of fragmented memories surged through my mind. Memories that were not mine but belonged to this Evelyn. Glimpses of a different life, a different time, a different kind of explorer. A geologist studying strange rock formations drawn by inexplicable anomalies. Her own journey mirroring mine, leading her to a similar fate. She had been here for what felt like centuries. She had been here since before the settlers, before the old ones. I realized with a crushing blow that my own memories, my own identity, were still fragmented, intertwined with the collective consciousness. My own essence might have been taken, and now I was merely a vessel for the echoes of others. The commander turned their attention fully to me, their visor glowing faintly. This one, it's actively resisting the binding, the residual fear, the active thought patterns. The commander turned their attention fully to me, their visor glowing faintly. This one, it's actively resisting the binding, the residual fear, the active thought patterns. It's a unique signature, far stronger than any we've observed in the fold's immediate proximity. My spectral form trembled, a wave of mingled fear and a strange, nascent hope coursing through my fragmented mind. I tried to speak, to make any sound, but my vocal cords were still useless, my spectral form incapable of physical utterance. Yet within the new, raw clarity that the commander's presence seemed to stir, I felt an almost unbearable urge to communicate, to prove I was still me, or at least some semblance of myself. The commander knelt before me, their green visor just inches from my translucent face. I could see the reflection of the cavern, distorted and alien, in the polished surface. Their gloved hand reached out, not to touch me, but to a small panel on their wrist gauntlet. A series of rapid clicks and soft whirs followed. Adjusting neural interface parameters, the commander announced, their voice now clearer, less distorted, directly in my mind. It was an intrusion, but not the cold, alien presence of the sleeper. This was structured, deliberate, almost scientific. Attempting a direct neural link. Subject shows unusual resilience. We might be able to establish two-way communication. A faint, almost imperceptible pressure settled behind my eyes, a sensation like a delicate probe exploring the deepest recesses of my consciousness. It was uncomfortable, a subtle violation, but it was also a lifeline. I clung to it, focusing all my will, all my scattered identity on reaching out. Can you hear me? The thought, raw and desperate, wasn't a voice, but a projection, a resonance in the commander's mind, a merging of my own struggling consciousness with the newly established link. A flicker of surprise, barely visible through the green visor, passed over the commander. Remarkable, they murmured aloud, but their mental reply was immediate and clear. Yes, faintly, your thought patterns are chaotic but present. What is your name? Adam Miller. The name, my name, felt like a shield, a defiant assertion against the overwhelming tide of other memories, other lives, other deaths. Please, you have to help me, help us all. Adam Miller, the commander repeated, a hint of something unreadable in their mental tone. We have records of you. An explorer, disappeared 6 days ago, presumed harvested. I projected, a surge of renewed terror mixing with a fragile hope. They took my essence, but I'm still here. I'm trapped like the others. The commander straightened, their gaze sweeping over the rows of bound, spectral figures. You are an anomaly, Adam Miller. A rare one. Most are fully integrated into the fold's collective consciousness by this stage, their physical forms merely residual conduits. You retain a strong sense of self. What is happening to me, to us? I asked, the whispers of Evelyn's despair, the fragmented memories of countless others, still echoing in the background of my mind. The sleeper consumes essences, entire consciousnesses. It draws them into the fold where they are dissolved and reintegrated into a vast alien network. It's its form of sustenance, its fuel for whatever it is planning. Your individual essence, your core being, has likely already been drawn through the portal. What remains here is an echo, a resonance, sustained by the fold's energy field. The commander's explanation was clinical, devoid of emotion, yet horrifying in its implications. So I'm just a ghost, a memory. The realization was a cold, bitter pill. More than that, Adam, you are a bridge, a fragment that has retained enough integrity to still function as a conduit for the fold's larger network while also retaining a degree of individual awareness. This makes you valuable, potentially. Valuable for what? I asked, dread creeping back in. The commander paused, their mental presence focusing intently. We are the sentinels. We track, contain, and when possible, eradicate threats to this reality. The sleeper is one of the oldest and most dangerous. It has been active for millennia, siphoning life from countless worlds. Earth is merely one of its hunting grounds. Other worlds, my mind reeled. The scope of this horror was far vaster than I could have imagined. Yes, the fold is not just a dimension, it is a nexus, a sprawling network of harvested souls from countless species across countless galaxies. Its purpose is still not fully understood, but it serves the sleeper's ultimate goal, to expand its influence to consume entire realities. But what can you do? You drove it back, but it's still there. We contained it, Adam, a temporary victory. It will sleep again, gather its strength, but we have secured a stable portal to the fold. This is a crucial development. The commander gestured towards the shimmering blue opening held open by Jenkins's device. Normally, the fold portal collapses when the sleeper retracts. Your continued presence and that of the other active remnants may have contributed to its lingering stability. And you think you can fix this, free us? My hope, though fragile, flared again. The commander's mental reply was grim. Freeing you is complicated. Your essence is intertwined with the fold. To extract it would likely destroy what remains. And to detach your current spectral form from its conduit state could sever its connection to the fold's stabilizing field, causing it to dissipate completely. We have never successfully reversed the harvest process. My nascent hope flickered and died, a chilling despair not just my own, but the collective echo of 1,000 lost souls washed over me. So I'm truly lost then, we all are. Not necessarily without purpose, Adam Miller, the commander, replied, a hint of steel in their mental tone. Your unique state presents an opportunity. You are bound, yes, but you are also a direct conduit to the fold's neural network. You are seeing through the sleeper's eyes, hearing its thoughts, feeling its reach. You are witnessing its grand design, even in its dormant state. It wants me to remember for it. I recalled the sleeper's earlier chilling command, to witness. Precisely, and we need that witness, Adam. We need to understand its plans, its vulnerabilities. You are our eyes and ears inside the fold. Your consciousness, fractured as it is now a unique intelligence asset. The implication hit me with the force of a physical blow. They weren't going to free me. They were going to use me, just like the sleeper. My unique misery was merely a tool for their own objectives. The explorer's curse, indeed. You want me to spy for you, to be an informant. A co-operator, the commander corrected mentally, their tone firm. It is your best chance at meaningful existence, Adam, to fight back even in this state, to help us contain this horror. We can protect your physical conduit, ensure it remains stable. We can even enhance your connection, refine your ability to perceive and transmit information from within the fold. It will allow you to see deeper, understand more. And if I refuse, then you will remain as you are, an echo slowly fading as the fold eventually reclaims every last vestige of your individual awareness. You will become indistinguishable from the other dormant conduits, your unique self eventually consumed by the collective despair. The commander's mental tone was not threatening, but factual, stating an undeniable truth. We cannot force you to cooperate, but we offer you a choice, oblivion or a new purpose. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the low hum of Jenkins's device stabilizing the portal and the occasional faint crackle from the armored suits. I was trapped, utterly irrevocably trapped, but the thought of fading, of becoming just another nameless, despairing echo in the fold's vast network was unbearable. The very notion of losing my identity, the last flicker of who I was a terror even greater than this spectral existence. What do you need me to do? I projected, the words tinged with a deep, crushing resignation. The commander knelt again, the mental link strengthening, becoming clearer. We need you to observe, Adam, to push against the boundaries of your current perception. The sleeper wanted you to witness. Now you will witness for us. Focus on the fold, on the portal. What do you see beyond the surface? What do you sense? I looked towards the shimmering blue portal, the vibrant, living blue that pulsed with a cold, alien power. Beyond it, the vast, desolate landscape of the fold beckoned, a realm of bruised purples and sickly greens, skeletal structures and viscous pools. The indistinct shadowy figures still moved within it, towards an unseen focal point. I focused, pushing my fragmented consciousness, my raw, unyielding curiosity towards the portal. It was difficult, like trying to grasp smoke. The collective despair of the other bound souls, of Evelyn's millennia of silent suffering, tried to drag me back, to smother my individuality. But the commander's link, a steady, guiding presence, helped to anchor me. As I pushed, the visual landscape of the fold began to shift, to deepen. It was no longer just a flat image. I felt a strange, chilling sense of vertigo, as if I were falling into it, becoming part of its alien reality. The shadowy figures became clearer, their movements more purposeful. They were not just random shapes, they were entities, vast and ancient, though still indistinct in their form, moving with a ponderous, inexorable rhythm. I see movement, I projected to the commander, not just shadows, beings, large ones, moving towards something, a central point. Good, Adam, excellent, keep pushing. Can you discern their purpose, their nature? I focused harder, pouring all my remaining will into the task. The sensation was agonizing, like stretching my very soul beyond its limits. Memories of Evelyn's geological studies, her scientific drive, merged with my own explorer's instinct. I saw through her eyes for a moment, her keen observational skills layered onto my own. They are gathering, converging. It's like a pilgrimage, but not of worship, of consumption. The energy, the essences, it's all flowing towards that central point. Then a new perception, not visual, but a feeling. A cold, pervasive hunger emanating from the very core of the fold. It was immense, overwhelming, a hunger that transcended any physical need, a cosmic void that sought to devour all existence. The hunger I projected, my mental voice strained. It's everywhere, it's the fold itself. And at the center, there's a focal point of intense concentration. It's drawing everything in, all the essences, all the souls. The primary processing nexus, the commander's thought resonated, a subtle satisfaction in their tone. We suspected as much. It's where the harvested energies are refined, amplified. The sleeper feeds on this refined energy, even in its dormant state. But what does it do with it? Why does it need so much? That, Adam, is what we need to discover. It has been doing this for eons. its ultimate goal remains elusive. But your observations are invaluable. You are seeing what no sentinel has ever been able to directly perceive. The other 4 sentinels had moved away from the sealed chasm. 2 were now standing guard near the fold portal, their glowing rifles held ready. Jenkins was adjusting his tripod device, fine-tuning the green beam holding the portal open. The remaining 2 were moving amongst the bound figures, setting up other, smaller devices. These devices were sleek, metallic rods with glowing blue tips, which they placed carefully against the obsidian wall, near the blue energy lines that bound us. "What are they doing?" I asked, a fresh wave of anxiety washing over me. "Stabilizing the conduits," the commander explained. "We need to ensure your forms remain viable. The sleeper's residual energy, while potent, can be erratic. Our devices will provide a consistent energy flow, keeping your spectral bodies intact and your mental link active for extended periods." My heart sank. This wasn't rescue. This was maintenance. They were preserving me and the others as living, breathing, or rather, non-breathing spectral observation posts. A new form of imprisonment, perhaps even more insidious than the sleepers. So I'm to be a perpetual observer, trapped here forever. For as long as you can provide intelligence, Adam, and for as long as we can sustain you, we understand the gravity of your situation, but you are serving a greater purpose now. You are humanity's best chance against this ancient threat. The weight of that greater purpose felt crushing. I was a casualty of an ancient cosmic war now conscripted into service, a ghost soldier in a battle I barely understood. As the other sentinels finished setting up their stabilization devices, the cavern began to settle into a new kind of eerie silence. The hum of Jenkins's portal device, the soft whir of the stabilization rods, and the constant, overwhelming whispers of the Fold's collective despair were the only sounds. The commander, satisfied with the setup, turned back to me. "We will establish a more permanent communication link. Our equipment will allow us to receive detailed sensory input and mental projections. You will be our primary contact for the foreseeable future." "What about the others, Evelyn?" I projected, remembering the geologist whose despair still echoed strongly within me. "A few others show similar, albeit weaker, signs of individual consciousness. We will monitor them. But your resilience, Adam, is exceptional. You are our priority." The commander then pulled out a small, metallic sphere from a pouch on their belt. It hummed softly, pulsing with a faint green light. They placed it gently on the obsidian wall next to my bound form, just above the stabilization rod. "This is a neural amplifier and long-range comm unit," the commander explained, their voice now out loud, though still clear in my mind. "It will strengthen your connection to our command center, allow for more complex data transfer. It will also help filter some of the background noise from the Fold's network, allowing you to focus." As the device activated, a strange, calming sensation spread through my mind. The cacophony of despair, the constant, low wail of countless lost souls lessened. It didn't disappear entirely, but it became more like a distant murmur, allowing my own fragmented thoughts to coalesce with greater clarity. It was a small mercy, but a significant one. "Thank you," I projected genuinely. "Don't thank us yet, Adam Miller," the commander replied mentally, a hint of something that might have been regret in their tone. "Your task will be difficult. but vital. We will be in constant contact. Focus on the fold, on the movements, on the energy flows. Every detail matters. The commander then turned to their team. All right, sentinels, secure the area. Jenkins, monitor the portal stability. Elias, Olivia, begin sweep for secondary sleeper artifacts. Maya, establish long-range comms with HQ and relay Adam's initial observations. The sentinels moved with quiet efficiency, their green visors sweeping the cavern. Elias and Olivia began to meticulously examine the obsidian walls, their hands occasionally touching the glowing runes, their suits emitting soft scanning beeps. Maya, the female voice from earlier, set up a larger, more complex communication array near one of the ships, its antenna extending towards the cavern's ceiling. The commander gave one last, long look at the sealed chasm where the sleeper had retreated, a determined resolve in their posture. Then they turned back to me. We will maintain a constant presence here, Adam. A small forward operating base. This will be your new observation post. And so my existence transformed again. I was no longer just a victim. I was a sensor, a spy, a living instrument for an organization I knew nothing about, fighting a cosmic horror that defied all understanding. My body, or what was left of it, was still bound to the cold obsidian wall, a spectral prisoner. But my mind, now partially freed from the overwhelming noise, was forced to confront the abyss, to stare into the terrifying, hungry heart of the fold. Weeks blurred into a monotonous eternity within the cavern. Time, as I had known it, ceased to exist. My awareness was a constant, unsettling duality, anchored to my spectral form against the cold obsidian, yet simultaneously drifting through the vast alien landscape of the fold. The sentinels, true to their word, established a small, efficient base within the cavern. They set up specialized lighting that didn't interfere with the blue energy field, erected temporary shelters, and deployed advanced monitoring equipment. Commander Thorne, I learned their name and the names of the other sentinels. Jenkins, Elias, Olivia, and Maya was a stoic, driven leader. They maintained a constant, almost clinical, contact with me through the neural amplifier. My primary task was to be their eyes and ears within the fold. The amplifier helped, dampening the ceaseless despair of the collective consciousness, allowing me to focus. But it was still a battle and constant fight against the overwhelming sensation of being countless, nameless souls, all crying out in silent agony. Evelyn's memories, her keen scientific mind, proved an unexpected asset. Her fragments of knowledge, her analytical approach, helped me to process the alien phenomena I was witnessing, to find patterns in the chaos. Through the shimmering blue portal held open by Jenkins's device, the fold revealed its terrible secrets. I saw the colossal, shadowy figures moving across its desolate landscape. They were not organic in the way I understood life, but vast, shifting constructs of pure energy and solidified shadow, their forms constantly morphing. They were the processors, the commander explained mentally, beings that existed solely to facilitate the flow and transformation of harvested essences. Their purpose was to guide the rivers of consciousness towards the central nexus. And the nexus itself, I spent countless hours, or what felt like hours, trying to penetrate its secrets. It was a churning maelstrom of raw psychic energy, a supermassive black hole of souls. From it I sensed the deeper hunger of the sleeper, a cosmic appetite that was far more complex than simple consumption. It wasn't just feeding, it was refining the consciousnesses into something else, something I couldn't yet comprehend. Commander, I projected one day as I observed the endless flow of essences. The energy signature from the nexus, it's not stable. It fluctuates. There are peaks and troughs like a heartbeat, but it's not regular. Thorne's mental reply was immediate. Good observation, Adam. We've detected similar anomalies with our external scanners. What causes the fluctuations? Can you discern any patterns? I pushed deeper, the effort draining. Evelyn's scientific curiosity drove me. I focused on the moment of each fluctuation. It felt like a subtle shift, a recalibration. It's like it's being redirected. Not all the energy is consumed at the nexus. Some of it is being channeled elsewhere, like a circuit, but an organic one. Redirected, whereto Thorne's tone sharpened. I tried to follow the subtle energetic pathways. It was like tracing invisible rivers through an ethereal landscape. The difficulty was immense, the sheer volume of information overwhelming. The despair of the fold, though dampened by the amplifier, was a constant undertow, threatening to pull me back into its mindless void. There are smaller streams branching off from the main flow. They lead to specific structures. The skeletal towers on the horizon. They're not just ruins, they're conduits, transmitters. Transmitters for what? I don't know. The energy seems to build up within them, then it just vanishes, disappears from the fold, like it's being sent somewhere else entirely. Thorne was silent for a long moment. That confirms a theory we've been working on, Adam. The sleeper isn't just feeding itself, it's building something or powering something. Something outside the fold, outside our known reality. The implication sent a chill through my spectral being, colder than the cavern itself. An ancient entity harvesting countless worlds, refining their consciousnesses, and then transmitting that energy to where, for what purpose? The scale of the sleeper's ambition was terrifying. Days, or cycles, as the sentinels called them, continued. My connection to the commander grew stronger, more seamless. Our mental conversations flowed easily, a strange intimacy born of shared purpose and extreme circumstances. I learned about the Sentinels' long, desperate fight against countless cosmic threats, the unseen wars waged on the edges of reality. Thorne, it turned out, was not just a commander, but a seasoned veteran, carrying the weight of countless lost battles and sacrifices. I also learned more about my own condition. My spectral body, my conduit form, was stable, sustained by the Sentinel's devices. But my essence, the Adam Miller that was truly me, was still lost in the fold. My current self was a sophisticated echo, a consciousness resonating with the residual memories and emotional imprints of countless others, anchored by the neural amplifier and my own stubborn will. A commander I projected during one night cycle as Thorne sat quietly in their temporary command post reviewing data. I can feel the sleeper, even in its slumber. How so, Adam? It's like a deep, persistent hum in the background of everything, a presence. And sometimes I feel its hunger. It stirs, it anticipates, it's dreaming of something. What kind of dreams, Adam? Vastness, consumption, expansion. It dreams of breaking free, of engulfing everything. Thorne was silent, a rare moment of introspection. We call them apex predators, Adam, entities that exist solely to consume. But the sleeper is unique. Its methods are refined. It doesn't just devour flesh, it devours identity, consciousness, the very fabric of being. What you're experiencing is merely a taste of its ultimate ambition. I shuddered, a silent, spectral tremor. The weight of the world, of countless worlds, felt heavy on my non-existent shoulders. One day, a new set of data began to flood my perception. It wasn't just the energy flow or the shadowy processors. It was a memory. A powerful, vivid memory, not from Evelyn, not from any of the human souls in the cavern, but something far older, far more alien. It started as a faint ripple in the fold's collective consciousness, a disturbance in the background noise. Then it intensified, forming into a cohesive narrative projected directly into my fragmented mind. It was a vision, a terrifying panoramic sweep across a vibrant, living world utterly unlike Earth. A world of crystalline forests, oceans of liquid light, and skies filled with bioluminescent creatures. A civilization of beings not human but elegant, multi-limbed, and wise, living in harmony with their beautiful, shimmering planet. Their cities were organic constructs, grown from luminous flora, pulsing with life and art. Then a shadow, a growing darkness in their sky, not a natural eclipse, but a deliberate, expanding blot. The fear of these alien beings, their ancient, profound terror, flooded my mind, a fresh wave of agony and understanding. Commander, I projected, the vision overwhelming, the alien fear choking me. I'm seeing something. A memory, a world, it's being consumed. Thorne's response was immediate, urgent. A historical data packet, the sleeper is accessing its own memories, project everything, atom, details, every single impression. The vision continued, the shadow expanded, eclipsing their sun. From it, the black-skinned harvesters, countless in number, descended like locusts. But they were not using delicate devices. They were using massive, terrible machines, constructs of dark metal and pulsating crimson energy that tore through the crystalline forests, vaporizing the luminous flora, shattering the liquid oceans. The elegant, multi-limbed beings fought back with their own advanced technology, beams of light and shields of pure energy, but they were futile against the sheer, overwhelming power of the sleepers' children. Their cities crumbled, their essence-rich planet was stripped bare. And then the ultimate horror. The harvesters deployed vast, shimmering nets of blue energy which swept across the planet, not collecting physical bodies but sweeping up consciousnesses, ripping them from their physical forms, funneling them into massive collection vessels. The screams of billions of souls, an alien cacophony of despair, resonated through my merged consciousness, a pain that transcended language. The world died, its vibrant colors faded, its oceans stilled, its crystalline forests turned to dust. All that remained was a barren, shattered husk, picked clean, drained of all life, all consciousness. And the harvesters retreated, carrying their unimaginably vast harvest into the fold, leaving behind a silent, dead planet. The vision faded, leaving me reeling, my mind a storm of alien grief and terror. I felt sick, though I had no stomach. My spectral form trembled uncontrollably. The sheer scale of the atrocity, the casual, systematic destruction of an entire vibrant world for fuel, was beyond my darkest imaginings. Adam, report, are you still with us? Thorne's mental voice cut through the chaos in my mind, a steady anchor in the storm. It was awful, Commander. I managed to project my mental voice, weak, raw, an entire world, billions of souls, harvested. The sleeper, it did this, over and over. This is what it does. Yes, Adam, we know this is how the fold is populated. We call them collapse memories. The sleeper's fragments of its past conquests, it draws on them, relives them. It's how it refines its methods, keeps its hunger sharp. But why show it to me? I asked, the terrifying implication dawning on me. Why did it make me witness that? It's not doing it deliberately for you, Adam. It's projecting for itself. But your unique link, your active consciousness, allows you to intercept these projections. It's a glimpse into its inner workings, its psychological landscape. Psychological landscape. It has a psychology. It's a monster. Even monsters have patterns, Adam, and vulnerabilities. This is crucial information. It confirms the sleeper's true nature, an interdimensional, planetary-scale apex predator. It doesn't just eat, Adam, it harvests, it refines, and it transmits. The transmission, those towers, where is it sending the energy? That remains the biggest mystery, Adam. The purpose of the ultimate energy output. We have theories, but no solid evidence. And your ability to tap into the sleeper's own memories, that might be the key to finding out. The revelation of the collapse memory was a turning point. My role shifted from passive observation to active investigation. Thorn urged me to delve deeper into the fold, to seek out more of these collapse memories, to piece together the sleeper's history, its methods, and most importantly, its ultimate objective. It was a harrowing task. Each collapse memory was a fresh wound, a fresh wave of alien terror and despair. I witnessed worlds of burning deserts, icebound moons, gas giants with sentient atmospheres, all devoured, all reduced to barren husks and rivers of harvested consciousness. I saw countless species, their civilizations unique and profound, reduced to mere fuel for the sleeper's inscrutable purpose. The cumulative trauma was immense. My fragmented mind, already a mosaic of other people's memories, grew ever more complex, ever more burdened. Evelyn's presence, the constant hum of her ancient despair, became more pronounced, more distinct. She was not just a background noise anymore. She was a companion in my torment, a silent witness to my suffering. Sometimes I felt her analytical mind working alongside mine, helping to sift through the chaos, to organize the horrifying data. Her memories of Earth, of ancient geology, of the first signs of the sleeper's presence on our planet, began to surface more frequently. The Earth, it's been here before, I projected to Thorn one morning after witnessing a collapse memory from an ice planet, the screams of its inhabitants still echoing in my merged consciousness. Evelyn's memories. She saw it, the symbols, the stones, long before my time, before the old ones. Yes, Adam, the sleeper has been drawn to Earth repeatedly throughout its history. It leaves behind its aspects, its markers, to slowly gather power, to prepare for a deeper harvest. Your own path, Adam, your exploration, was merely the latest iteration of this ancient lore. The truth was a bitter one. My entire life, my passion for discovery had been nothing more than a carefully laid trap, an ancient predator's bait. Months passed, though the concept of time in the cavern was meaningless. My connection to the fold and to the sleeper's internal processes grew stronger. I could almost feel the currents of raw essence flowing through the fold, perceive the subtle shifts in the sleeper's dormant consciousness. The sentinels continued their meticulous work, analyzing my data, experimenting with their devices, ever vigilant. One day, as I was meticulously tracing the pathways of the transmitted energy from the fold's towers, a new, alarming pattern emerged. The energy wasn't just vanishing, it was being stored in vast, unseen reservoirs beyond the fold, beyond the sleeper's immediate domain. And these reservoirs were filling up, rapidly. Commander, I projected a surge of pure dread, the transmitted energy. It's not being consumed, it's being collected, stockpiled. Thorn's mental presence stiffened an immediate tension. Explain, Adam, be precise. I can see the reservoirs now. They're immense, and they're almost full. It's like a colossal battery slowly charging, and the rate of charge, it's accelerating. Accelerating, that shouldn't be possible while the sleeper is dormant. Its energy output is significantly reduced. But the fold is still active, Commander. The processors are still guiding essences to the nexus. The towers are still transmitting. Even in its sleep, the sleeper's engines are running, siphoning, and collecting. The implications were dire. If the sleeper was stockpiling energy even in its dormant state, then its awakening, its eventual breakout, would be catastrophic. It would have a reserve of unimaginable power at its disposal. Thorn was silent for a long moment, then I felt a surge of grim determination. This changes everything, Adam. We believed containment was sufficient. But if it's building a power reserve, it means it has a final, ultimate objective. Something that requires a truly immense amount of energy. What could it be? I asked, a knot of icy fear in my spectral stomach. We don't know, but your discovery is critical. It means we cannot wait for it to fully awaken. We have to act. Thorn's voice, both mental and spoken aloud, was sharp with renewed urgency. Maya, Jenkins, Elias, Olivia, assemble at the command post. Immediate debriefing. Adam has made a critical discovery. The sentinels, who had been engaged in their various tasks, immediately converged. Their faces, visible through their glowing visors, were serious, their movements quick. Thorn projected my discovery directly into their minds, a raw, unfiltered stream of my perceptions. The palpable shock and dread that rippled through the team was clear. A power reserve, Jenkins, the team's tech specialist, muttered aloud. That's unprecedented. Our models never accounted for a secondary external energy storage system. It means the sleeper is far more sophisticated than we initially understood, Olivia, the team's tactical expert, added, her voice tense. This isn't just about feeding. This is about accumulating for a grander design. And the acceleration, Commander, Elias, the team's data analyst, pointed out. If the reservoirs are filling faster than anticipated, it means its sleep cycle might be ending prematurely. We could be looking at an imminent, full awakening. Thorn nodded, their visor glowing with fierce determination. Precisely. Containment is no longer enough. We have to consider a full-scale offensive. If the sleeper breaks free with that much power at its disposal, the consequences for Earth and potentially other realities would be catastrophic. A silent debate, a flurry of mental projections and spoken analyses unfolded amongst the sentinels. They discussed tactical options, energy signatures, potential vulnerabilities. My own mind, a repository of the sleeper's past conquests and current operations, was a focal point of their strategy. I fed them every detail, every nuance, every flicker of insight I gleaned from the fold. Commander, I projected during a lull in their discussion. I can sense something else from the reservoirs, a vibration, a low-frequency hum. It's not just energy, it's structure. The structure, Thorn's mental query was sharp. Explain. It's like immense latent machinery, waiting, powered down. but the energy from the reservoirs is flowing into it. It's being prepared, activated. The sentinels froze. A new, deeper dread settled into the cavern. Latent machinery. Latent machinery, the commander repeated, their mental voice sharp, devoid of any discernible emotion, yet infused with an undeniable urgency. Adam, describe it. Every detail. What does it look like? What does it feel like? I focused my fragmented consciousness, pushing past the constant, dull ache of the fold's collective despair. The neural amplifier helped, carving a path through the static, allowing me to perceive the newly unveiled horror with greater clarity. It was like peeling back a veil, seeing beneath the surface of reality itself. The structure wasn't physical in the way I understood. It was a vast, intricate network of interlocking energy fields, humming silently, patiently in a realm adjacent to the fold, yet distinct from it. It felt immense, spanning unimaginable distances, like a cosmic web woven from the very fabric of harvested consciousness. The energy from the reservoirs, those colossal batteries I'd discovered, pulsed into this network, not just powering it, but activating it, bringing it to a terrifying, latent life. It's like a colossal loom, Commander, I projected, struggling to find a human analogy for the alien construct. Or a factory. But it's not making things, it's forming connections, weaving something. The energy isn't just flowing, it's being directed into specific nodes, specific patterns. Patterns? What kind of patterns, Adam? Elias, the data analyst, injected mentally, his curiosity overriding the initial shock. Their resonant frequencies, I continued, the words coming to me from Evelyn's lost memories of advanced physics, merged with my own burgeoning understanding of cosmic energies. Like a symphony of pure energy, but without sound, a harmonic structure. And the reservoirs are feeding it, calibrating it, bringing it to full power. A harmonic structure for what purpose? Thorne's mental probe was insistent. I strained, pouring all my will into the perception. The effort was immense, pulling at the fragile threads of my own identity. The despair of Evelyn, the echoes of countless others, surged, threatening to overwhelm me, but I clung to the commander's mental link, to the urgent need for answers. Then a new, horrifying realization slammed into me. The patterns, the resonant frequencies, they weren't just generic energy flows. They were unique. Each pattern, each specific frequency corresponded to a single, distinct reality, a single world. Commander, I projected, the dread turning to icy terror. It's a portal network, not just one portal like the fold, a network of portals, and it's tuned to specific realities. A profound silence descended upon the sentinels in the cavern. Even the subtle hum of their equipment seemed to falter for a moment. I could feel their collective shock, their sudden, horrifying understanding. Thorne's mental reply was slow, grim, utterly devoid of hope. A portal network tuned to specific realities. Meaning, the sleeper isn't just harvesting one world at a time, it's preparing to harvest many, simultaneously. A multi-reality harvest. Simultaneous incursions, Olivia murmured aloud, her voice tight with disbelief and horror. A full-scale invasion across multiple dimensions, that's an apex predator's ultimate play. The energy stockpiles, the accelerating charge rate, Elias added, his voice strained. It all makes sense now. It needs a colossal power reserve to sustain a multi-reality portal network of that scale. This isn't just about Earth, Commander. This is about everything. Jenkins, usually the most outwardly stoic, ran a gloved hand over his helmet. If it pulls this off, it'll consume entire sectors of reality. There'd be no containing it then, no going back. We knew it was dangerous, but this is a declaration of cosmic war, Maya said, her voice a low, fierce growl. A preemptive strike is our only option. We can't let it finish charging that network. The Thorns straightened, their posture radiating grim resolve. Agreed, containment is obsolete. Our mission just escalated. We need to penetrate the fold, neutralize the nexus, and disrupt that portal network before it comes online. A flurry of intense, focused discussion erupted in the cavern. The Sentinels, now united by this terrifying revelation, began to strategize with a renewed, desperate urgency. My fragmented mind, a living conduit to the Sleeper's grand design, became the heart of their planning. I projected every detail I could glean, the exact location of the energy reservoirs, the precise harmonic frequencies for each reality, the subtle weak points in the nascent portal network. Adam, how long until the network is fully charged? Thorn demanded, their mental presence a laser focus. I strained again, pushing my perception to its limits. The sheer scale of the energy, the complexity of the network was almost beyond comprehension. But Evelyn's scientific precision, her meticulous nature, helped me to sift through the data. Days, Commander, maybe a week at most. The acceleration is dramatic. It's almost ready. Thorn swore, a silent mental expletive that reverberated with frustration and urgency. A week, that's barely enough time to mobilize. We need to move immediately. This team will be the spearhead. We strike now with what we have. The Sentinels began to prepare. Their temporary shelters were dismantled, their monitoring equipment packed away. Their movements were swift, efficient, each action imbued with a silent, deadly purpose. They were soldiers preparing for the most dangerous mission of their lives. Thorn knelt before me, their green visor just inches from my translucent form. Adam, your connection to the fold is now more critical than ever. You will guide us. You are our eyes and ears on the inside. Can you project the pathways through the fold, the most direct route to the nexus, and to those portal network towers? I can try, Commander, I projected, a surge of adrenaline mixing with the pervasive dread. The thought of deliberately entering the fold, of pushing my awareness deeper into that realm of pure despair, was terrifying. But the alternative, the destruction of countless worlds, including my own, was far worse. It will be difficult. The fold is chaotic, and the Sleeper's awareness is growing even in its sleep. It will perceive me. Then we must be swift, Thorn replied, their mental voice unwavering. We are counting on you, Adam. Everything depends on it. As the Sentinels finished their preparations, they activated a new set of devices. These were small, spherical drones, no larger than a human fist, that hovered silently near the portal. They pulsed with a faint green light, their optical sensors sweeping the cavern. These are reconnaissance drones, Maya explained, her voice carrying through the comms. They'll precede us into the fold, mapping the terrain and feeding you tactical data. Think of them as extensions of your perception, Adam. Use them. Jenkins, meanwhile, was making adjustments to his tripod device, the green beam holding the fold portal open. I'm reinforcing the tether, Commander, he reported. maximizing stability for a sustained incursion. It's going to be a rough ride in there. Rough is an understatement, Jenkins, Olivia muttered, checking the power cell on her rifle. We're walking into a dimension of harvested souls, guided by a ghost to fight a cosmic horror that's powering up a multi-reality invasion network. Just another Tuesday, Elias deadpanned, but the tension in his voice was clear. Thorn turned to the team, their green visor sweeping over each sentinel. All right, listen up. Our objective is multi-pronged. First, eliminate the processing nexus to disrupt the flow of essences. Second, cripple the main energy reservoirs feeding the portal network. Third, disable or destroy the portal network towers themselves. We move as one, no heroics. Stick to the plan. This isn't a retreat. This is a surgical strike. What about the sleeper itself, Commander? Maya asked. Can we target it directly? Thorn was silent for a moment. Adam, what is the sleeper's current state? Where is its core consciousness focused? I plunged my perception back into the chasm where the sleeper had retreated, attempting to pierce its dormant veil. It's deep within the chasm, Commander. Its core is still in a profound slumber, but its ancillary awareness, its dreams, are now focused almost entirely on the portal network. It's guarding it, nurturing it. So a direct strike on the core is out for now, Thorn concluded. Our priority is to disrupt its grand design. If we can sever its energy supply and cripple its network, we can force it into a deeper, longer sleep, buying us time for a larger, more permanent solution. Understood, Commander, Maya affirmed. Thorn then turned back to me, their mental link strengthening once more. Adam, this is it. The fate of countless realities rests on your ability to guide us. Are you ready? Ready? How could I be ready? I was a spectral fragment, an echo of a man bound to a wall facing a cosmic horror. But the alternative, the image of countless worlds reduced to barren husks, their populations siphoned into this hungry abyss, spurred me on. Evelyn's silent despair, her millennia of suffering, lent me a strange, defiant strength. If she could endure, I could act. I am ready, Commander, I projected, my mental voice firmer than I thought possible. I will show you the way. All right, Sentinels, Thorn announced, their voice booming through the comms, a rallying cry in the silence of the cavern. Open the fold, we're going in. Jenkins made a final adjustment to his device. The shimmering blue portal, previously a stable window, now pulsed with a new, vibrant intensity, its alien landscape beckoning with deadly promise. The low hum of the fold grew louder, a chilling symphony of a million lost souls. One by one, the Sentinels initiated their descent into the abyss. Thorn, Elias, Olivia, Maya, and Jenkins, their weapons glowing with a faint blue energy, their green visors reflecting the terrifying reality they were about to enter. The small reconnaissance drones, like glowing fireflies, preceded them, slipping through the shimmering veil. As the first sentinel stepped through, the blue light of the portal intensified, momentarily obscuring them. Then they were gone, swallowed by the fold. The others followed, their figures disappearing into the alien dimension with practiced ease. I focused my perception, linking with the drones and through them to the Sentinels' neural networks. The world beyond the portal exploded into a riot of bruised purples, sickly greens, and black, jagged spires. The air, if it could be called air, was thick with the silent screams of countless souls, a constant, pervasive hum of despair that even the neural amplifier struggled to filter. Adam, initial report. Thorne's mental voice cut through the chaos, steady and clear. Visibility, terrain, any immediate threats. Visibility is challenging, Commander. The air is thick with ethereal particles. The terrain is broken, treacherous, jagged obsidian-like structures, deep chasms, and the processors, they're everywhere. Indeed, the vast, shadowy figures, the processors I had observed for so long, now moved across the landscape with a ponderous, inexorable rhythm. They were colossal, easily towering over the sentinels, their forms shifting and morphing like solidified smoke. Their movements churned the rivers of harvested consciousness that flowed across the landscape, guiding them towards the distant, churning nexus. They are not showing aggression yet, Olivia projected, her combat redoubt filtering through the comms. Passive, almost oblivious to our presence. But they are immense. We should avoid direct confrontation if possible. Agreed, Olivia. Adam, guide us around them. We need to reach the nexus unseen for as long as possible. I poured my will into guiding the drones, projecting a mental map of the treacherous terrain, highlighting hidden pathways and potential cover. The sentinels moved with disciplined precision, their armored forms surprisingly agile as they navigated the alien landscape. Their advanced suits filtered the fold's overwhelming sensory input, allowing them to function. The journey was harrowing. Every step deeper into the fold was a step deeper into the abyss of cosmic suffering. The whispers of the lost grew louder, more distinct, occasionally coalescing into fragmented memories, flashes of alien lives, alien fears. I felt Evelyn's despair intensify, her silent cries for release almost unbearable. Adam, what's that structure ahead? Elias asked, his mental query accompanied by a drone's visual feed. Ahead, piercing the sickly green sky, stood a cluster of the skeletal towers I had identified as the transmitters for the portal network. They pulsed with an internal crimson light, radiating an immense latent power. They were terrifying in their alien beauty, monuments to the sleeper's grand, destructive ambition. Those are the portal network towers, Elias, I projected, a knot of fear tightening in my spectral core. They are drawing energy from the reservoirs, preparing the pathways for the multi-reality harvest. They look immense, Maya observed, her voice low. How do we disable them without detonating the entire network prematurely? That is a key question, Thorne conceded. Adam, can you identify any critical weak points? Any central conduit that could disrupt the entire structure? I focused my perception on the towers, pushing against the sheer force of their raw, stored power. The effort was immense, causing my spectral form to flicker and strain against its bindings. I felt Evelyn's memories surge again, her scientific mind analyzing the energy flows, searching for a flaw in the design. There is a central conduit, Commander, I finally managed to project, the words straining against the immense mental effort. A focal point within each tower. It's drawing the raw harvested energy and channeling it into the harmonic resonance generators. If you can disrupt that, then the entire tower network should destabilize, Elias finished, a glint of grim satisfaction in his mental tone. Excellent, Adam, that gives us a target. As they approached the first cluster of towers, the ground beneath them began to rumble. The immense processors, which had seemed oblivious to their presence, now stirred. Their shifting forms began to accelerate, their movements becoming more erratic, more purposeful. Adam, they're reacting to us, Olivia projected, her weapon rising. The sleeper's ancillary awareness. It knows we're here. Yes, I confirmed, a fresh wave of primal fear washing over me. It's awakening. Its protective instincts are kicking in. The network is too important to it. Brace for contact, Thorne commanded, their voice ringing with authority. Jenkins, prepare a defensive perimeter. Elias, focus fire on any immediate threats. Olivia, Maya, cover our flanks. The processors, previously passive, now turned their vast, shadowy forms towards the sentinels. Their forms began to solidify, edges sharpening, and from within their ethereal bodies, faint blue pinpricks of light, reminiscent of the harvester's eyes, began to glow. They were not just processors, they were also guardians, constructs designed to defend the sleeper's domain. They're not just energy constructs anymore, Elias yelled. They're hardening, generating some kind of protective field. The first wave of processors surged forward, their immense forms surprisingly swift. The ground trembled with their advance. The air filled with a low, guttural hum that was the alien equivalent of a roar. Open fire, Thorne commanded. Blue energy bolts erupted from the sentinels' rifles, lashing out at the approaching processors. The bolts struck the shadowy forms, causing them to ripple and distort, but the protective fields held. The processors barely flinched, absorbing the blasts with chilling resilience. Minimal effect, Jenkins shouted, his own rifle blazing. Their shields are too strong. Adam, any weaknesses? Thorne demanded, their mental voice sharp, urgent. I strained again, pushing my perception through the combat. Evelyn's memories of advanced energy fields of structural weaknesses flooded my mind. The core, the blue lights within, they are drawing power from the fold itself. They're not fully integrated into the processors. They're a vulnerable point. Target the glowing blue nodes, Thorne roared, relaying my intel. Concentrate fire. The sentinels shifted their focus, aiming their energy bolts with precision. When a bolt struck one of the glowing blue nodes within a processor, the protective field wavered, and the shadowy form cried out, a silent, mental shriek that grated on my spectral senses. It's working, Olivia yelled, her rifle spitting blue energy. They're vulnerable there. The battle intensified. The sentinels, now knowing the weak point, cut through the first wave of processors with renewed efficiency. The colossal constructs dissolved into shimmering blue dust, just like the harvesters, their ethereal forms dissipating into the fold. But more were coming. From the swirling distances of the alien dimension, more processors emerged, their glowing blue nodes already visible, their intent unmistakably hostile. We can't fight them all, Commander, Maya shouted over the comms, dodging a massive, spectral limb that swept through the air. There are too many. We're not here to fight a protracted war, Maya, Thorne retorted, their own rifle blazing, a blue bolt striking a processor's weak point. Our objective is the Nexus and the towers. Adam, what is the fastest route to the Nexus from here? We need to bypass these guardians. I quickly projected a mental map, identifying a precarious pathway through a jagged chasm, a route that skirted the densest concentrations of processors. It was risky, narrow, and filled with unstable, ethereal bridges, but it offered the quickest path. This way, Commander, I projected, guiding a drone through the precarious route. It's dangerous, but it avoids the main force. Understood, Thorn commanded. Jenkins, suppressive fire, Elias, Olivia, Maya, follow me, we're breaking through, move. The Sentinels executed a daring maneuver, Jenkins laying down a barrage of sustained fire to keep the incoming processors at bay, while Thorn, Elias, Olivia, and Maya sprinted towards the chasm, their suits glowing faintly in the dim alien light. As they reached the edge of the chasm, a massive processor, larger and more resilient than the others, materialized directly in their path. It raised a colossal, shadowy limb, preparing to smash them. "Contact heavy target," Olivia shouted. "Jenkins, fall back and provide covering fire," Thorn commanded, already aiming their rifle at the giant processor. "Elias, focus fire. Maya, prepare a diversionary blast." The Sentinels unleashed a volley of concentrated blue energy, striking the colossal processor's glowing nodes. It shrieked, its immense form rippling, but its shield held firm against the coordinated assault. It was stronger, more durable. "It's an alpha processor, Commander," I projected, identifying its unique energy signature from Evelyn's analysis. "It has enhanced shielding. You need to overload its energy source. A sustained, concentrated blast." "Overload its core," Thorn yelled, relaying my instructions. "All available firepower on the central node, now." The Sentinels poured every ounce of their weapons' energy into a single, devastating beam, focusing it on the Alpha processor's largest, brightest blue node. The energy beam shimmered with destructive power, slamming into the node. The Alpha processor roared, a silent, cosmic scream of agony that ripped through my spectral mind. Its massive form shuddered violently, its shield flickering, then collapsing. With a deafening mental explosion, it dissolved into a torrent of shimmering blue dust, its immense form vanishing into the fold. "Clear," Elias shouted, catching his breath. "Good work, Sentinels," Thorn praised, their mental voice laced with relief. "Now let's move. Adam, guide us through that chasm, fast." They plunged into the chasm, navigating the treacherous path I projected, their suits scanning for structural integrity as they crossed the ethereal bridges. The processors above them thrashed and roared, but could not reach them in the narrow confines of the chasm. The journey through the chasm was a race against time, a desperate dash deeper into the heart of the fold. My connection to the sleeper, to its dormant consciousness, grew more profound with every step they took. I could feel its anger, its mounting fury as its guardians were bypassed, as its domain was violated. It was not fully awake, but its dreams were growing darker, more violent. Eventually, they emerged from the chasm into a vast, open expanse that glowed with a sickening, vibrant blue light. This was the heart of the fold. Before them, churning like a supermassive black hole, was the Nexus. It was a vortex of pure, refined consciousness, a maelstrom of souls, twisting and spiraling into an unseen point. Rivers of blue energy, the processed essences, flowed into it from all directions, creating a terrifying, hypnotic display of cosmic power. And surrounding the Nexus, like sentinels themselves, stood the colossal energy reservoirs, pulsing with a dark, contained power. They were immense, mountainous constructs of solidified shadow, crackling with raw, stored energy, ready to unleash their apocalyptic payload through the portal network. Beyond them, faintly visible in the alien sky, loomed the dark silhouettes of more portal network towers. The Nexus commander I projected, my mental voice filled with awe and dread, and the reservoirs, this is it. This is the heart of the beast, Thorn murmured aloud, their voice grim. All right, Sentinels, Priority 1, disable the Nexus. Adam, any direct vulnerabilities, any way to destabilize the processing core. I focused on the churning vortex, pushing my perception deep into its swirling core. It was immense, overwhelming, a maelstrom of countless identities, all being systematically unraveled and refined. Evelyn's scientific mind, her fascination with complex systems, helped me to look for the patterns within the chaos. It's a cascade, Commander, I projected, an interconnected system. The entire vortex is a single massive processing unit, but there's a central modulator, a frequency dampener. It regulates the flow, prevents feedback loops, if that's overloaded. Then the entire nexus should collapse into a destructive feedback loop. Elias finished, his mental voice sharp with understanding. A chain reaction. Understood, Thorn said, their mental presence unwavering. All weapons on the central modulator. Jenkins, give me a target lock. Maya, prepare an energy dampener. We hit it hard, then we hit it with a dampener to prevent secondary energy spikes. As the Sentinels prepared their assault on the Nexus, the fold around them began to respond. The atmosphere thickened, growing heavy with palpable dread. The distant screams of the lost intensified, coalescing into a mournful wail that vibrated through my spectral form. The sleeper, though still dormant in its chasm, was becoming acutely aware of their presence. Its anger, its ancient fury, was radiating throughout its domain. Suddenly, from the immense reservoirs, shimmering beams of dark energy shot out, lashing towards the Sentinels. They were not direct attacks, but warning shots, probing strikes of immense power. Incoming, Olivia yelled, rolling and ducking behind a jagged obsidian outcrop, her suit's energy shields flaring as a beam grazed her position. The reservoirs are defending themselves, Jenkins shouted, already adjusting his targeting systems. They're projecting localized energy blasts. Commander, the reservoirs are linked directly to the sleeper's core awareness. I projected the information gleaned from a recent collapse memory of a world that tried to dismantle a smaller reservoir. They are its defensive limbs in this dimension. You must disrupt them before they fully activate their defenses. Target the conduits leading into the reservoirs, the main power lines. New priority, disconnect the reservoirs. Thorn roared, their rifle already tracking the energy conduits that snaked across the landscape, feeding into the colossal Shadow Mountains. Maya, use your energy dampener on those conduits. Jenkins, provide targeting solutions. Elias, Olivia, lay down suppressive fire on the Nexus modulator while we deal with the reservoirs. Keep it destabilized. The battle plan shifted instantly. Maya deployed her energy dampener, a device that emitted a wave of shimmering green energy towards the conduits. As the green wave washed over the dark energy lines, they flickered, their connection to the reservoirs momentarily faltering. Meanwhile, Elias and Olivia unleashed a torrent of blue energy bolts onto the central modulator of the Nexus. The churning vortex rippled violently, its flow momentarily disrupted, but it quickly tried to restabilize. Thorn and Jenkins focused their fire on the conduits. Blue energy bolts slammed into the dark lines, causing them to spark and crackle with immense, volatile power. The conduits were surprisingly resilient, but under the sustained fire, they began to show signs of damage. One by one, the conduits snapped, severing the connection between the reservoirs and their power source. With each severed connection, the immense shadow mountains of stored energy shuddered, their localized defensive fire faltering, growing weaker. "Reservoir connections severed," Jenkins yelled, a note of triumph in his voice. "The defensive energy signature is collapsing." "Good work, Sentinels," Thorn commanded, turning their full attention back to the Nexus. "Now all fire on the central modulator. Overload it, don't let it recover." All 5 Sentinels unleashed a devastating barrage on the central modulator of the Nexus. Blue energy bolts slammed into the churning core, destabilizing it further. The vortex shrieked, a piercing mental scream that echoed through my very being, a cosmic feedback loop of unimaginable power. The Nexus began to unravel. The carefully refined consciousnesses, previously flowing in an orderly, terrifying current, now spun out of control, coalescing into chaotic, destructive eddies. The entire structure of the Nexus started to tear itself apart, light and shadow ripping through its core. The ground beneath the Sentinels began to tremble violently. Massive fissures opened in the black-green earth, spewing ethereal smoke and raw, unfiltered despair. The very fabric of the fold seemed to groan in agony as its heart was ripped asunder. "The Nexus is collapsing," Elias shouted, his voice barely audible over the growing chaos. "It's generating a massive energy pulse we need to pull back." "Not yet," Thorn roared, their mental voice overriding the comms, a primal battle cry. "Adam, the portal network towers, what is their status after the Nexus collapse? Are they still active?" I pushed my perception towards the distant, dark silhouettes of the towers. The destruction of the Nexus had a ripple effect. The flow of refined essence, the very fuel for the portal network, had been severed. The crimson light within the towers flickered erratically, growing dim. "They are destabilizing, Commander," I projected, a surge of desperate hope. "The power flow is disrupted. They are losing their harmonic resonance." "This is our chance," Thorn shouted, their voice filled with fierce determination. "Jenkins, Maya, Olivia, push to the portal network towers. We disable them now. Elias, cover our retreat from the Nexus. I'm with Elias." The team split. Jenkins, Maya, and Olivia, their faces grim but resolute, sprinted towards the distant towers, their weapons still spitting blue energy to keep any remaining disoriented processors at bay. Thorn and Elias continued to pummel the collapsing Nexus, ensuring its utter destruction, before turning to provide covering fire for their teammates. As Jenkins, Maya, and Olivia reached the base of the nearest tower, they found its structure already beginning to crack and crumble, its internal crimson light sputtering. "Adam, where's the central conduit?" Maya asked, her voice urgent. "High up, Maya, near the apex. It's still trying to draw residual energy. You have to cut off the last power flow." "Got it," Jenkins yelled, already activating a specialized grappling device from his gauntlet. A glowing tether shot out, latching onto the skeletal structure of the tower. "I'm going up." Jenkins began to ascend the tower, his suit's magnetic clamps assisting his climb. Maya and Olivia laid down covering fire, dissolving any processors that tried to interfere. As Jenkins neared the apex, a new threat emerged. From the shattered core of the collapsing nexus, a wave of raw, unfiltered psychic energy erupted, a desperate final surge of the sleeper's rage. It swept across the fold, impacting my spectral form, sending a shockwave of agony through my already fractured mind. It was a scream of cosmic proportions, a silent roar of violated ancient power. Commander, incoming, massive psychic energy pulse from the Nexus. Elias shouted over the comms, his voice strained. It's overloading our mental filters. I felt the agony of Evelyn and countless others intensify 1,000-fold. The neural amplifier, previously a shield, was now barely holding against the overwhelming surge of despair and rage. My own consciousness was splintering, threatening to dissolve entirely. Adam, hold on. Thorne's mental voice, though strained, was still a lifeline. Jenkins, accelerate. We need those towers down now. Jenkins, enduring the psychic assault, pushed his climb, his focused determination a beacon in the storm. He reached the apex, finding the still flickering central conduit. With a final, desperate effort, he deployed a specialized cutting device, its blade humming with focused energy. He slammed it into the conduit. With a blinding flash of crimson and blue light, the conduit exploded. The entire tower shuddered, then began to crumble. Its skeletal structure groaned, the immense power it had stored now violently unleashed, tearing it apart from within. First tower down, Jenkins yelled, detaching his grappling hook and dropping, performing a controlled freefall back to the ground. One by one, guided by my fragmented but resolute directions, Jenkins, Maya, and Olivia destroyed the remaining visible portal network towers. Each explosion of light and energy sent shockwaves through the fold, further destabilizing the alien dimension. The sleeper's rage intensified, its mental screams growing louder, more frantic, a cosmic titan thrashing in its disturbed slumber. The Sentinels regrouped, exhausted but triumphant, near the rapidly collapsing nexus. The entire area was now a maelstrom of raw, chaotic energy. The rivers of harvested consciousness had vanished, replaced by a churning void. The colossal energy reservoirs stood inert, their connections severed, their power drained, monuments to a grand design that had been thwarted. The Nexus destroyed, portal network disabled, Thorne announced, their mental voice filled with a profound sense of accomplishment, even as the ground continued to buckle beneath them. Mission accomplished, now extraction. But as they turned to retreat, a new sound, far more terrifying than the silent screams of the fold, erupted from the cavern portal. A deep, guttural growl followed by a series of heavy, vibrating thuds. It was coming from their point of entry. Commander, I projected, a fresh wave of horror washing over me. Something is happening at the portal, the fold, it's reacting. Jenkins, status report on the portal, Thorne demanded, already pushing the team towards the glimmering blue exit. Commander, negative, Jenkins's voice crackled with static, his tone laced with raw panic. The fold is destabilizing the portal, it's drawing in ambient energy, my tether is failing, it's collapsing. Indeed, the shimmering blue portal, previously a stable gateway, was now flickering wildly, its edges fraying, distorting. The green beam from Jenkins's device struggled, its light dimming, unable to maintain the breach against the fold's violent reaction. It's trying to trap us, Olivia yelled, her voice urgent. The sleeper is sealing off the fold. Run, sentinels, run for the portal, Thorn roared, their mental presence a surge of frantic energy. We have to get out now. The sentinels sprinted towards the rapidly shrinking portal, dodging collapsing chunks of ethereal terrain, their rifles blazing at any remaining, disoriented processors that tried to impede their retreat. But the fold was actively working against them, throwing up barriers, distorting pathways, twisting the very fabric of its reality. The growling from the portal grew louder, more monstrous. And then from within the portal itself, a new, horrifying silhouette began to emerge. Not a harvester, not a processor, something far larger, far more menacing. Something with multiple limbs, massive claws, and glowing crimson eyes that burned with ancient fury. "Commander, what is that thing?" Maya screamed, her voice raw with terror. It's coming through the portal." The sleeper, I projected a desperate primal scream in Thorn's mind. It's projecting an avatar, a manifestation of its rage. It's trying to stop you. Thorn saw it too. A vast, multi-limbed creature, a terrifying blend of shadow and geometric lines, was tearing its way through the rapidly collapsing portal. Its crimson eyes, mirroring the sleeper's own furious gaze, fixed on the retreating sentinels. Its growl vibrated through reality, a sound that shattered bone and mind. "It's a manifestation, not its core," Thorn yelled, their voice strained, yet still holding command. "It's a desperate attempt to stop us. All weapons on that thing. Drive it back. We need to get through." The sentinels turned, unleashing a desperate barrage of blue energy bolts onto the colossal, multi-limbed manifestation of the sleeper's rage. Blue energy bolts, concentrated and fierce, slammed into its shadowy form, causing ripples across its skin of solidified despair. But unlike the processors, this creature seemed to absorb the attacks, its glowing crimson eyes narrowing with malice. It let out another guttural growl, a sound that tore at the very fabric of my spectral being, shaking the cavern itself. "No effect," Olivia yelled, her voice strained, even through the comms. "Its shields are absorbing everything, we're just fueling it." "Adam, its weakness." Thorn's mental command was sharp, urgent, cutting through the psychic wail of the fold. "There has to be a vulnerability. What powers this avatar?" I plunged my perception into the monstrous entity, pushing past the overwhelming waves of ancient fury radiating from it. It was a fragment of the sleeper, yes, but not its core. It was a projection, a construct of pure, raw despair and energy, designed to be its ultimate weapon within this dimension. Evelyn's analytical mind, her deep understanding of energy absorption and manipulation, became my guide. "It's drawing directly from the fold, Commander," I projected, the effort almost unbearable. "The raw essence, it's channeling it through its limbs, solidifying its form. Its core is shielded by that absorption. You need to sever its connection to the fold's ambient energy, cut off its supply. Target the points where it connects to the fold," Thorn roared, relaying the information. "The roots of its limbs disrupt the energy intake." The sentinels immediately adjusted their aim. The avatar was tearing its way further through the portal, its massive claws scrabbling against the cavern floor, sending vibrations through the very rock. Its multi-jointed limbs, thick as ancient trees, were dissolving the edges of the portal as it struggled to force its way through. Blue energy beams lanced out, striking the base of the avatar's limbs where they seemed to merge with the swirling, chaotic energy of the fold. Where the bolts struck, the shadowy form rippled violently, and a crackling sound, like thunder echoing in a void, rent the air. The avatar shrieked, a piercing mental scream that made my spectral form vibrate painfully. Its crimson eyes flared, and it lunged forward, pushing its immense bulk further into the cavern, its claws raking against the ground. The portal, already unstable, began to shrink even faster under the strain of its struggle. "Jenkins, how much time?" Maya shouted, unleashing a volley of bolts at the monster. 50 seconds, maybe less," Jenkins yelled back, his device sputtering, struggling to hold the portal open against the sleeper's furious assault. "It's actively trying to collapse the gate. We need to get out now." "Fall back, sentinels, disengage and push for the portal," Thorn commanded, their voice laced with desperation. "Adam, keep guiding their fire, keep it distracted." The sentinels, now fighting a desperate rearguard action, began to retreat towards the rapidly shrinking blue gateway. The avatar, sensing their imminent escape, redoubled its efforts, its multiple limbs flailing, trying to seize them. One of its colossal claws swept through the air, barely missing Elias, who rolled clear just in time. The force of the blow sent him sprawling. "Elias, are you clear?" Olivia shouted, providing covering fire. "Mostly," Elias gasped, scrambling back to his feet, his suit's warning lights flashing. "Shields at 60%. The avatar was gaining on them. Its furious growl filled the air, and its crimson eyes, burning with ancient hatred, seemed to fix on each sentinel individually. It was learning, adapting. Its energy absorption field was strengthening, focusing its resilience where they aimed. "Its core is still protected, Commander," I projected, my mental voice barely a whisper against the psychic storm. "It's diverting power from its outer limbs to strengthen its central mass. You need to hit it all at once, overwhelm its energy redistribution." "Concentrated fire on the main body," Thorn ordered, their mental projection a surge of grim resolve. "Every weapon, don't let up, we push it back or we die trying." The sentinels, now just yards from the flickering portal, unleashed a final, desperate barrage. Blue energy bolts converged on the avatar's main torso, a blinding torrent of destructive power. The sheer force of the concentrated assault caused the shadowy form to shudder violently, its energy absorption field struggling to cope. The avatar shrieked again, a sound that shattered bone and mind, and its advance faltered. For a crucial moment, it recoiled, momentarily overwhelmed. "Go, go, go," Thorn roared, "through the portal. Jenkins, maintain the tether as long as you can, we're coming." One by one, the sentinels plunged through the flickering blue gateway. Olivia first, then Maya, followed by Elias. As Thorn prepared to jump, Jenkins, still hunched over his struggling device, looked back at the monstrous avatar, which was now recovering and lunging forward with renewed fury. "Commander, it's coming. I can't hold it any longer," Jenkins shouted, his voice laced with absolute despair. The avatar was almost upon them, its massive claws extended, its crimson eyes burning with murderous intent. It was too close. Jenkins would be caught. "Jenkins now," Thorn yelled, but it was clear Jenkins was too entangled with his device, too focused on holding the portal to escape in time. In that instant, a terrifying clarity ripped through my fragmented mind. Evelyn's silent despair, her millennia of suffering, coalesced into a single, defiant resolve. I was a conduit, a fragment, an echo, but I was also Adam Miller, and I would not let them fall. Jenkins, disengage, I projected a raw, desperate surge of mental energy that tore at the last remnants of my spectral form. I can buy you time. With a furious, suicidal surge of my spectral consciousness, I threw myself not into the fold but at the sleeper's avatar. My translucent form, an echo of a man, became a momentary focal point for the fold's ambient despair, a beacon of defiance. I didn't know if it would work, if I could even physically interact with a manifestation of that scale, but I had to try. My spectral self slammed into the avatar's chest. It was like striking a mountain of solidified hatred. The impact was purely psychic, purely energetic, but it registered. The sleeper's manifestation roared, a sound of absolute cosmic fury, as if a speck of dust had dared to defy it. For a split second, its advance faltered, its crimson eyes widening, not with pain, but with utter disbelief at my audacity. That split second was all Jenkins needed. With a desperate heave, he ripped his device from the ground, severing the last, failing tether to the portal. The blue gateway, no longer held open by his efforts, instantly flared, contracting violently, and then winked out of existence, slamming shut with a deafening, silent thump that echoed across realities. Jenkins, having detached his device, stumbled backward through the rapidly collapsing portal just as it sealed itself. The last thing I saw before the portal vanished was Jenkins's frantic scramble, and then the monstrous face of the sleeper's avatar, its crimson eyes fixed on me, burning with a fury that promised eternal torment. Then darkness, not the darkness of the fold, but a sudden, absolute cessation of all sensation. My link to Thorn was severed, my connection to the neural amplifier gone, my spectral form torn asunder by the sleeper's rage and my suicidal act of defiance dissolved. The endless flow of essences, the whispers of the lost, the pervasive despair all vanished. Only a profound, absolute silence remained. The cavern was silent, save for the frantic gasps of the sentinels. The shimmering blue portal, once a gateway to terror, was gone, replaced by solid rock, scarred and smoking where the avatar had clawed its way through. Jenkins lay on the ground, breathing heavily, his suit sparking, his device shattered beyond repair. Thorn, Elias, Olivia, and Maya quickly rushed to his side. Their suits, scarred and dented, bore witness to the desperate battle they had just fought. Their faces, visible through their glowing green visors, were streaked with sweat, etched with exhaustion and relief, but also with a profound, aching loss. "Jenkins, are you all right?" Thorn knelt beside him, checking his vital signs. I think so, Commander," Jenkins coughed, pushing himself up, wincing. "The portal, it collapsed, just in time. Adam bought us that last second." He looked at the scarred wall where the neural amplifier still hummed, where my spectral form had been anchored. Now there was nothing, only the faint green glow of the amplifier, pulsing empty. A heavy silence descended. They had escaped. The mission was accomplished, the nexus destroyed, the portal network disabled. They had crippled the sleeper's grand design, but at a terrible cost. "Adam," Thorn murmured, their mental link straining for a response that wouldn't come. There was only the static of an empty channel, the ghost of a presence that was no more. He sacrificed himself. Elias lowered his head, his shoulders slumping. Maya's hand went to her visor as if to wipe away tears. Olivia, usually so stoic, stood rigid, her weapon hanging loosely in her grip. The weight of my sacrifice settled upon them, a heavy shroud of grief amidst their hard-won victory. Thorn slowly rose, their gaze fixed on the empty space where I had been. He was more than a conduit, more than an echo, they said, their voice, usually so controlled, now tinged with raw emotion. He was a sentinel. He died a hero. The commander turned to the team, their green visor sweeping over their exhausted faces. All right, sentinels, we mourn later. We have a mission to complete. Jenkins, what's the status of the fold's stability? Did we truly seal it? Jenkins, despite his injuries, managed to access his remaining data. The portal is gone, Commander. The fold reacted violently to the sleeper's avatar trying to force its way through. It seems to have sealed itself, temporarily at least. The energy fluctuations from the chasm are still present, but they're weaker, disoriented. The sleeper is reeling. Good, Thorne said, a grim satisfaction in their tone. We bought ourselves time, but we can't assume it's permanent. A being of that scale, that ancient power, it will recover. It will rebuild. Our window of opportunity just closed, but we created it. Now we prepare for the inevitable. Elias analyze every scrap of data Adam transmitted. Every collapsed memory, every insight into the sleeper's true nature, its vulnerabilities, its grand design. We need to understand everything. Yes, Commander, Elias replied, already activating his console. Olivia Maya begins setting up a long-range monitoring array. We need to detect any new shifts in the sleeper's energy signature. Any attempt to reopen the fold, to restart its harvesting operations. We need to know the moment it begins to stir again. On it, Commander, Olivia confirmed, her voice resolute. Jenkins, get to the med bay. You're injured. Then I need you to focus on the neural amplifier. Can we re-establish a link to Adam? Is there any residual energy, any echo left? Jenkins hesitated, looking at the empty space. Commander, it was a full dissolution, a complete energetic discharge. There's nothing left to connect to. His consciousness, it's gone. Thorne paused, a palpable wave of grief emanating from them. Even so, I want every protocol run, every possibility explored. Adam was unique. If there's even a ghost of a chance, we find it. Understood, Commander, Jenkins said, pushing himself slowly towards the nearby medical station. Thorne then walked over to the neural amplifier, their hand reaching out, not quite touching it. The device hummed with a low, constant energy, its green light casting faint shadows on the cavern wall. It was an empty vessel now, a conduit without its essence. The place where Adam Miller, the man and the echo, had stood. Suddenly, a faint, almost imperceptible flicker caught Thorne's eye. It wasn't from the amplifier itself, but from the raw rock face behind it, the very wall where I had been projected. A tiny, almost invisible fissure, and within that fissure, a faint, ethereal blue glow. Thorne knelt, inspecting it closely. It was barely visible, a hairline crack, but the blue light pulsed rhythmically like a slow, deep heartbeat. It was not the green of the amplifier, nor the chaotic blue of the fold, but something else entirely. Something familiar. Elias, Olivia, get over here. Thorne's voice, though still low, held a new, urgent intensity. Bring the long-range scanners, calibrate for exotic energy signatures, focus on this specific point. Elias and Olivia quickly brought their portable scanners. As they activated them, a strange hum filled the air, rising in pitch as the scanners locked onto the faint blue glow. Data began to stream across their visors. Commander, what is this? Elias murmured, his voice filled with scientific awe. the energy signature, it's residual, but it's not from the fold, it's human, but deeply intertwined with something else, something ancient. It's Adam, Olivia whispered, her visor reflecting the faint blue light. It's his energy signature, but it's changed, it's hybridized. Thorn reached out, gently touching the faint blue glow. It felt cold, ethereal, yet vibrated with a profound, quiet power. He didn't just disappear, he didn't just dissolve, he didn't simply cease to be. Thorn's mental projection was filled with a dawning, terrifying realization. He's still here, imprinted on the very rock, a part of the cavern now, a part of Earth. The implications were chilling. My sacrifice hadn't resulted in oblivion. Instead, my essence, fractured and changed by its immersion in the fold, by its contact with Evelyn, and by its final, desperate act, had somehow imprinted itself onto the fabric of reality itself. A part of me remained, a subtle, ethereal blue glow, pulsing like a slow, deep heartbeat within the very rock of the cavern. "But what does that mean, Commander?" Maya asked, joining them, her voice hushed. "Is he alive in some way?" "I don't know," Thorn admitted, their mental voice laced with both wonder and trepidation. "But his signature is stable. It's a very low energy state, but it's persistent. And the ancient energy signature, the one from the collapse memories from Evelyn, it's there too, fused with his." Elias looked up from his scanner, his eyes wide. "Commander, this is unprecedented. We've never encountered a consciousness signature that could survive such a dissolution, let alone bond with the very physical reality of a planet. This is a new form of existence." "A new form of existence, indeed," Thorn echoed, their gaze fixed on the faint blue glow, then sweeping around the cavern, taking in the remnants of the sleeper's failed incursion, the scarred portal, the empty neural amplifier. Adam Miller, the human, immersed in the fold, became a spectral conduit. His sacrifice, his final act, has transformed him again. He is now a living imprint, a part of Earth itself, an anchor, a guardian. A new understanding settled upon them. The battle was over for now. The sleeper was repelled, its grand invasion thwarted, but the consequences of that battle and the profound changes it had wrought were only just beginning to unfold. My essence, Adam Miller's consciousness, now pulsed silently within the bedrock of Earth, a ghostly sentinel, intertwined with the ancient despair of Evelyn, and forever bound to the planet I had died to protect. Thorn knew, with a certainty that chilled them to the bone, that this was not the end. The sleeper would awaken again, it would rebuild, and when it did, a new force born of human spirit and cosmic despair would be waiting. But what kind of force? What could this new imprinted Adam Miller truly become? What new powers, what new vulnerabilities lay within this faint blue glow, this silent heartbeat within the stone? The questions hung heavy in the air, unanswered, waiting for the next inevitable chapter in the war for reality. The faint blue glow pulsed steadily in the rock face, a quiet counterpoint to the hum of the neural amplifier. Elias, his face still smudged with grime from the fold, meticulously adjusted his portable scanner. The data flowing across his visor was unlike anything he'd ever seen, a complex tapestry of human brainwave patterns interwoven with exotic, ancient energy signatures. "The spectral frequencies are incredibly low, Commander," Elias reported, his voice hushed with scientific reverence. "But they're consistent. It's Adam, but layered like a palimpsest. Human consciousness, yes, but also echoes of Evelyn's despair and something else. Something connected to the fold itself, but not of the fold." Olivia, standing beside Thorn, held a smaller, more sensitive scanner. "It's like he's become a part of the planet's natural energy grid," she mused, her brow furrowed. "Drawing sustenance, perhaps, from the ambient energy of Earth filtered through the memory of the fold." Thorn ran a gloved hand over the scarred rock face, not quite touching the faint blue glow. An anchor, they repeated, the word taking on new weight. A sentinel born of this very world. The sleeper sought to consume Earth, but instead Earth now holds a piece of its torment, transformed. Maya, who had returned from deploying the long-range monitoring array, approached, her expression a mix of awe and lingering concern. But what does it do, Commander? Can it communicate? Is it still Adam? Jenkins, his arm now bandaged from a superficial burn, had joined them. He gazed at the blue light with a deep sadness. I tried to establish a mental link with the neural amplifier, Commander. No direct connection. It's like the energy signature is there, but the bridge is gone. He's inaccessible. For now, Thorn corrected, their voice firm. We cannot assume silence means absence. Adam was our conduit to the sleeper, and now he is something else entirely. We will exhaust every scientific avenue to understand this new state of being. Elias, I want you to dedicate yourself to this. Develop new protocols, new devices. Can we create a stable, non-invasive channel of communication? Can we understand the implications of this fusion? Elias nodded, his eyes already gleaming with scientific challenge. It's the most complex energy signature I've ever encountered, Commander. But yes, we'll learn everything we can. Good, Thorn said, then turned to Maya and Olivia. The long-range monitors are our first line of defense. Any fluctuation from the chasm, any hint of the sleeper stirring, we need to know immediately. This victory bought us time, but not peace. The war isn't over, it has merely entered a new phase. Understood, Commander, Maya affirmed, her hand instinctively going to the rifle holstered at her side. Jenkins, Thorn continued, I need you to assess the fold's current stability. What are the chances of the sleeper manifesting an avatar again or reopening the gate from its side? And what are our options for a more permanent seal? Can we reinforce this cavern? Jenkins rubbed his chin. The fold is still reeling from the avatar's forced retreat and the destruction of the Nexus. It sealed itself, but that's not a guarantee against a cosmic entity. I can install localized energy dampeners and structural integrity fields, but a direct attempt from the sleeper to reopen it would be a different battle. He paused, looking at the blue glow. Unless Adam's new state